Chapter 1502. Outside the holy city, it was a scene of devastation. Yi Qinghan was bathed in the supreme blood, and his entire body was covered in it. His fists rained down on Xue Wudi's head and back, causing the latter's body to distort and his bones to break. Ugh. Damn it. Suofeng. Ah. You betrayed your master. Xue Wudi roared and struggled, but he couldn't break free from Yi Qinghan's iron bones. He was beaten to a pulp. Boom. Xue Wudi rushed up, but Yi Qinghan smashed him back into the ground. Over and over again, Xue Wudi was finally exhausted. Yi Qinghan was also exhausted. He could only hold Xue Wudi's head and pin him to the ground. He was so tired that he couldn't even speak. Both of them were covered in blood. Both of them were seriously injured. The sound of heavy breathing spread far and wide, echoing in the air. In the sacred city, the city walls were flattened. Countless people were killed by the shockwaves. There were also countless people who were seriously injured. There were more than 1 million people. The rest of the people were only slightly injured. Even the elite guards who were guarding the enchantment were exhausted and lying in a pool of blood. Emperor Yi struggled a few times but couldn't stand up. At this moment, no one could help Yi Qinghan. Even if the realm army was awake, they couldn't kill the realm lord. Even if Xue Wudi was seriously injured and didn't have any world energy left, he couldn't be killed by ordinary people. Only the realm lord could kill the realm lord. The only thing they could rely on now was God. Let's see who would recover first, Yi Qinghan or Xue Wudi. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wudi had a ferocious expression. They pressed each other to the ground and fought until they were exhausted. They didn't even move. Yi Qinghan's iron arm grabbed Xue Wudi's neck and almost broke it. Xue Wudi used his remaining strength to hold onto Yi Qinghan's arm to reduce the pressure. The two were in a deadlock. Time slowly passed, and Jigu finally recovered. He slowly walked towards Yi Qinghan and Xue Wudi with a long spear in his hand. His eyes were filled with seriousness. At this moment, getting close to two terrifying existences was definitely a matter of life and death. As long as the two of them used a little bit of strength, the aftermath of a realm lord's attack would be able to destroy a non-first lord existence. Don't get close. Even if you go over, you can't kill him. If you want to kill the realm lord, you have to destroy his soul. With your cultivation, even if the realm lord's soul is in a weakened state, it's not something you can destroy. The elite guard opened his eyes and immediately warned him. Jigu immediately stopped and gazed into the distance as if both of them were dead. The moonlight shrouded this dangerous place. After an unknown number of hours, the two of them finally moved. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. A cold smile appeared on Yi Qinghan's handsome face. With a flip of his body, he completely suppressed Xue Wudi. Then he grabbed Xue Wudi's neck with both hands and lifted him up. Xue Wudi stared at Yi Qinghan angrily. He tried to pry open Yi Qinghan's iron arm but he couldn't. Both of them recovered some of their energy but Xue Wudi was helpless. He didn't have a chance. Yi Qinghan lowered his voice and said, "How does it feel to be defeated by your own people?" They stared at each other with eyes filled with hatred. Xue Wudi had a reason to suspect Yi Qinghan's true identity, but his neck was grabbed and he couldn't speak. He could only use his soul to communicate. "You thief, you can't kill me. You can destroy my body but you can't stop my soul from leaving. I'll give you one more chance." Yi Qinghan looked at the old and tired Xue Wudi and smiled evilly. "If you have the guts, give up your body. If you want to cultivate back, you won't be able to return to your peak in a few million years. After a few million years, I'll have flattened the 9 worlds. When you return, you'll be my slave." Xue Wudi couldn't bear to give up his body and struggled madly. Bang! Crack! Yi Qinghan's kick landed on Xue Wudi's leg, breaking it instantly. Xue Wudi screamed. Crack! Crack! Yi Qinghan forced Xue Wudi to give up on his physical body. His soul was not strong enough to kill Xue Wudi, so he could only destroy his physical body. Pieces of his bones were ripped out. These were all true realm bones. However, in front of Yi Qinghan's monstrous physical body, they seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. "Suofeng, you'll regret this." Xue Wudi roared. No, I won't regret it. If you don't give up your body today, I'll rip your bones off one by one, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Shui Wudi's eyes were cold. He grabbed Yi Qinghan's arm and tried to use his last bit of divine power to pry open Yi Qinghan's fingers. Crack, crack, crack. The two were wrestling. Yi Qinghan's hand was slowly loosening, but then it tightened again. He didn't give Shui Wudi any chance. Yi Qinghan's veins were bulging. He wanted to break Shui Wudi's neck. Shui Wudi's face was red and his eyes bulged. He was in great pain. His soul was gradually affected by his body and he almost fainted. If he didn't leave his body, his soul would die. Screech! Shui Wudi's soul broke out of his body and let out an unwilling roar. He wanted to crush Yi Qinghan into pieces. But Shui Wudi launched a soul attack. He roared and rushed out in all directions. Yi Qinghan's soul seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. His mind was buzzing and his eyes were bloodshot. However, it didn't affect him much. Zhong Kuang and the stone sword roared again. They were wary of the border army behind them. They released a divine light screen and separated the southern part of the city. Although the two great boundary items couldn't be compared to a true sector lord, it was hard for Shui Wudi's soul to break through the defense after leaving his body. Regretfully, Shui Wudi's attack was filled with hatred, but he wasn't able to kill anything. As for the body, it was directly taken away by Yi Qinghan. This was the body of a world overlord. No matter how useless it was, it still had powerful blood and chi energy. If used well, it might even become a third clone. Shui Wudi had lost his body. Even if he wanted to steal another body, he would have to find a suitable one. Even if he found one, he would have to cultivate slowly to recover. By the time he recovered, Yi Qinghan would have become a sector lord. He wouldn't have the power to take revenge. I will be back. Shui Wudi ran. He didn't run to the great wilderness to seek help from the other sector lords. Instead, he ran to the north. If Shui Wudi went to look for the Six Realms Masters in his soul state, the Six Realms Masters would not hesitate to devour his soul and use it for themselves. Yi Qinghan turned around and looked at the flattened city. He didn't feel sad at all. This wasn't the great wilderness. It was the saint city of the snow country. He didn't expect Shui Wudi to flatten it himself. If he knew that the so-called Zwafeng was the desolate lord, he would vomit blood. Yi Qinghan stepped into the ruins and saw countless people dying. Half of the border army was lost. There were only 5 million soldiers left. Most of them were injured. He couldn't help but sigh. It was already so difficult to defeat one. If the other 6 returned, would there be any room for struggle? At this moment, the divine bird brought Luo Bufan and more than 10 supreme gods from afar. Master, I have returned victorious. If there's anything you need help with, don't hesitate to ask. The divine bird came over with a wicked smile. Looking at the ruins of the imperial city and the hundreds of thousands of miles of land that had been razed to the ground, it sucked in a breath of cold air. It couldn't imagine what kind of disaster this place had suffered. Chapter 1503. The divine bird stood on Luo Bufan's shoulder and looked at the scene of devastation. It suddenly felt a little regretful. Running back at this time was courting death. One realm lord was already in such a state. If the rest of them came together, even if Yi Qinghan merged with his doppelganger, he would not be able to escape. Cough cough. When the divine bird was about 10 meters away from Yi Qinghan, Luo Bufan stopped and laughed. Master, I suddenly remembered that I still have something to do. Take your time, I'll leave first. When I'm done, I'll come back to find you. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and looked at the divine bird. A cold flame burned in his eyes. Hurry up and leave, idiot. The divine bird whispered to Luo Bufan. Yi Qinghan stared at the divine bird with an evil smile and said coldly, Where are you going? When the divine bird heard Yi Qinghan's tone, it knew that something was wrong. It quickly turned its head and said flatteringly, This divine bird knew that Master was fighting and was afraid that you would be in danger, so I rushed back. Now that you've dealt with the strong enemy, I'll go and settle my own matters. Just now, I saw a treasure on the way, but I was worried about Master, so I gave it up. Now that I'm free, I'll go and get the treasure. Yi Qinghan sneered and said coldly, I'm really touched. The divine bird is indeed loyal and courageous. Of course. I can treat anyone badly, but I wouldn't dare to be careless with you, master. The divine bird said seriously. If that's the case, then don't go. I'm lacking useful talents. As for the treasure, there's no need to go and get it. I have it here. Yi Qinghan's tone was calm, but it was extremely firm. He did not allow the divine bird to refute. The divine bird's mouth twitched. It looked pitiful and sighed at its bad luck. If it knew that the realm lord was so fierce, it would not have dared to come back. Is there anything special you want to tell me? Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes and stared at the divine bird. Hearing this, the divine bird knew that things were not going well. Gritting its teeth, it took the initiative to explain, Master, your cousin Yi Kun sacrificed himself heroically for the empire. He was killed by that bastard Shaolin of the true martial world. However, you can rest assured that I have avenged you. This divine bird has brought people to destroy the true martial world's lair. The divine bird made a solemn vow. Its tone was firm and domineering. If it were anyone else, they would have believed it. Yi Qinghan snorted. He had wanted to kill Yi Kun for a long time, but he couldn't bear to kill his own brother. The divine bird's intervention was a thorny issue. And? Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes as he looked at the divine bird. He was still a little angry. Killing Yi Qinghan was not scary. What was scary was that this guy had lied to him. The divine bird was on tenterhooks as it looked at Yi Qinghan's unfriendly gaze. It understood Yi Qinghan the best. He was as cunning as a ghost, and it wouldn't be easy to trick him. You know what I mean. When has this divine bird ever harmed you? The divine bird laughed and could only reply like this. Yi Qinghan couldn't be bothered to bicker with him. Looking at the followers beside the divine bird, he said in a deep voice, distribute these level 11 dragon immortal grass. 3 giant gods will receive 1 dragon immortal grass each, and 1 overgod will take 1. Don't give up on any of the injured. What? Yi Qinghan distributed a large amount of dragon immortal grass. He didn't know how many he had. There were 3 rooms of dragon immortal grass, and each of them was only so big. The number of dragon immortal grass in each room was probably no less than 1,000,000. Yi Qinghan gave out nearly 1,000,000 dragon immortal grass. These were all level 11. No matter how serious the injuries of the giant gods were, they should have healed by now. The army moved quickly. The lightly injured helped the heavily injured. Even the 2 commanders didn't stay idle. Yi Qinghan gave a level 12 dragon immortal grass to Emperor Yi and Jing Wei. He also gave some to the silver snake female cultivator. After all, they had worked hard, and it wasn't good to give up now. The 3 pseudo-sector lord level experts had level 12 dragon immortal grass, so their recovery speed was exceptionally fast. Yi Qinghan even took 2 and absorbed a large amount of Origin's sacred stone. However, he still wasn't full of Origin's sacred stone. The heaven and earth spiritual energy was devoured, forming a spiritual energy divine dragon. The world energy emitted a 10-colored divine light that enveloped Yi Qinghan. Even the Jing Wei and Emperor Yi who were near him benefited from it. Their strength recovered extremely fast. God energy surged and entered Yi Qinghan's body. He was like a bottomless pit, unfathomable. The energy contained within his body couldn't be estimated. It was almost on par with the Sector Lord. It was impossible to imagine how much energy he had when he entered the Sector Lord realm, but it would definitely exceed his peak strength. The space-time of the Snow Empire and God world was twisting. Even the bottleneck of the peak pseudo-Sector Lord realm was loosening. Boom, boom. Yi Qinghan circulated the world energy, recovering from his injuries while breaking through the bottleneck. The giant blood in his body became active again and started to boil. The world energy surged in his body as the giant blood burned. It was incomparably terrifying. The pressure enveloped the area, causing the sky to avoid it. It was as though a desolate ancient giant beast was awakening. Caught up, the bottleneck was broken. Yi Qinghan rushed into the peak pseudo-sector lord realm. What strange phenomena appeared in the sky? The 10-colored light enveloped the Milky Way. The heaven and earth trembled, and the entire 9 worlds trembled. The world energy within the 9 worlds surged towards the Snow Empire and God World. Far away in the Western Desert, Hierarch Wu Ji and the 6 demon sovereigns could feel the Western Desert's world energy pouring outwards. They were instantly shocked. This was definitely a newly ascended sector lord absorbing energy. Only a newly ascended sector lord would need so much energy. This was also the reason why only one sector lord could be born in a world. Because if 2 sector lords were to be born and fight for the world energy at the same time, the world wouldn't be able to withstand it and would definitely collapse. Someone broke through to the sector lord realm. Revered God Wu Ji said in shock. Outside the Western Desert, the 6 demon reverends saw the world energy flowing at an unimaginable speed. They couldn't help but feel shocked and fearful. Everyone was familiar with the old sector lords, but a newcomer would definitely be viewed with fear and hostility by the old sector lords. The desolate lord might have taken a detour. Let's go. Shioda, the 2 sector lords quickly rushed out of the Western Desert. Half a day later, the 2 appeared in the great desolate world. They realized that even the great desolate god force was out of control as they madly rushed towards the border. Hoo. The world energy and desolate god force formed 2 streams of energy that rushed towards the Snow Empire and God World. Even the flying beasts couldn't control their bodies. Shio that the 2 sector lords shuttled through space and rushed towards the border of the great desolate world. They wanted to kill the sector lord before he was fully formed. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's body was shrouded in flowing light. He was like a saturated primordial sacred stone that was about to explode. His might was boundless. The army looked at him from afar with eyes full of worship and reverence. A day passed, and Yi Qinghan was still absorbing the world energy. As for the army, they were able to absorb Yi Qinghan's world energy and ordinary snow god force without any hesitation. They were the fastest to recover to their peak state. Under the life and death calamity, more than half of them had broken through 2 minor realms. The weakest among them had broken through 1 minor realm. Chapter 1504. The world seemed to have solidified. The spiritual energy was in a solid state and crowded around the holy city. The dense spiritual energy allowed those who had survived a great disaster to have good fortune. All of them were advancing rapidly. Seeing Yi Qinghan break through, the divine bird heaved a sigh of relief. It didn't want to die with Yi Qinghan. Now that he had broken through, there was still a chance of survival. After 3 whole days, Yi Qinghan finally finished absorbing the spiritual energy. As for how much spiritual energy he had absorbed, only he knew. His current physical body and strength were flawless. If he fought with Xue Wudi now, even without the help of the 10 million troops, both sides would suffer. Congratulations, Master! Congratulations, Master! The divine bird cried out excitedly as though it had broken through. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. They were deep and dazzling like stars. His aura was restrained. His body emitted the aura of the great Tao. Standing there, it was like he was the great Tao of the heavens. His aura was different. He was now a true sector lord. His combat power was comparable to an ordinary sector lord. In a one-on-one fight, Yi Qinghan was not inferior to anyone. What? Yi Qinghan stood up and glanced at the divine bird. He said calmly, "Didn't you say you were going to get the treasure? Go now." The divine bird heard and said, angrily, "Master is in urgent need of talents. What's a treasure? I can have as many as I want, but Master only has one. You don't want to protect Master for the treasure. You are insulting me." Yi Qinghan was angry and amused. This fellow was always right. There are 2 other sector lords in the Western Desert. They should have sensed my breakthrough. They will definitely join forces to find me. Are you sure you don't want to leave? Yi Qinghan reminded calmly. The divine bird's aura stagnated. It was too late to regret. It could only grit its teeth and say, "Don't worry, I will help you kill one." Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked, "We will lure them into the torn danger zone and try our luck." The divine bird said. Yi Qinghan unceremoniously smacked the divine bird and said disdainfully, "If a fight breaks out in that place, I might be swallowed up as well. Who knows if I'll die in there?" Then, There's nothing I can do, the divine bird said dejectedly. There's no need to rush. I don't believe that they would dare to fight me to the death before they find me. Yi Qinghan was confident that these sector lords were all suspicious and afraid of his true self. As long as his true self did not appear, they would not dare to fight against him and might even try to rope him in. Rebuild the holy city. Send a group of soldiers out to help. See if there are any injured people nearby, Yi Qinghan said to Zhigu. When Zhigu saw that Yi Qinghan was quite concerned about the commoners, he was even more convinced that Zhuo Feng was the desolate lord. Otherwise, with the enmity between the desolate lord and the snow country's god world, he would not have saved the commoners. Men, the 1st and 2nd legions will split into 4 groups and search for the injured. The 3rd and 4th legions will stay behind to rebuild the holy city. Zhigu quickly ordered. The army quickly moved. They split into 10 groups and rushed in all directions. The remaining legions began to rebuild the holy city. Zhu Wuxin and Zhigu sat outside and cultivated. Emperor Yi helped them comprehend the great Tao while cultivating his zither Tao. They communicated with the profound laws of the heavens and improved their cultivation quickly. The elite guards improved because of this. The silver snake female cultivator benefited from this disaster. Not only did she not die, she also advanced a level and became a pseudo-sector lord pinnacle. Yi Qinghan's main focus was on defense. Those 2 sector lords could appear at any time. It was not just one sector lord. There were 2 of them. If he was not careful, he could die. He was only equivalent to a sector lord, but not a real one. Even with the help of 10 million soldiers, he could only take down Xue Wudi. Now that he had advanced a level, he could take down an expert like Xue Wudi alone. However, the outcome would be the same. He would be exhausted and would not have any defensive ability. Now, there were only 5 million soldiers left. A portion of them were heavily injured. 10 million soldiers could support him to fight against a sector lord. 5 million soldiers were nothing. This was not a matter of 2-1. The flow of time was much faster than usual. The spiritual energy started to retreat. The 9-world sky regained its peace. This peace lasted until the next morning. Suddenly, there was a slight movement in the sky. Yi Qinghan frowned. He looked into the distance. His figure flashed and disappeared outside the holy city. Xiao. 2 figures appeared at the end of the sky. The one behind was Yi Qinghan. He was chasing the person in front. From afar, it was a white-haired old man. Only his back view could be seen. He was very old, like an antique that had lived for countless years. He looked calm, but his figure appeared and disappeared. One moment he was in front and the next moment he was thousands of miles away. The key was that there was no space ripple or world energy ripple. It was like he was taking a stroll in the park. Yi Qinghan stared at the old man in front. His expression turned ugly because he recognized the old man. Swan Padian, Yi Qinghan shouted, since you are here, why are you hiding from me? Ha, you Swan Padian laughed heartily. His silhouette flickered as he landed on top of a mountain. He turned his head to look at Yi Qinghan. His wise and far-sighted face was convincing, but at the same time, it also caused people to shiver. The depths of his smile were like knives, causing Yi Qinghan to be on guard. Old thing, I knew I couldn't hide from you. Yi Qinghan groaned. He appeared on a mountain opposite Swan Padian. They were 100 meters apart. His divine robes fluttered in the wind. Tsk, you are still as stubborn as before. Even 9 reincarnations can't erase your sharp edges. Swan Padian laughed. I will always be me. Even if I reincarnate 1,000 times, I won't become a different person. Yi Qinghan coldly said, if you don't change, then you won't have the chance to reincarnate this time. Swan Potion's voice turned cold as he stared at Yi Qinghan. Chance? I fought for it myself. It wasn't given to me by others, and it wasn't given to me by you either. Yi Qinghan angrily retorted. Swan Padian smiled like a kind old man next door. However, Yi Qinghan always wanted to punch him. He wanted to level this old man's appearance. Huang, you're wrong. Actually, your chance to reincarnate was given to you by this old man. I just want you to understand that without me, you are nothing. You think you can run amok in this world just because of the luck given to you by Bai Zhe? Ridiculous. Swan Padian lightly mocked. The surroundings were completely silent. Yi Qinghan clenched his fist and looked at Swan Padian with murderous intent. Agree to my conditions and you can do whatever you want. If you don't. Swan Padian revealed a strange smile. The threat was very obvious. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and coldly asked, "What if I don't agree?" "If you don't agree, Bai Zhe will completely disappear without a chance to reincarnate. As for you, this old man's patience is limited." Swan Potion's voice became cold as if he had really lost his patience. Chapter 1505. Swan Potion's voice was so cold that it could pierce one's soul. This old thing that could even calculate the heavens was able to calculate the desolate lord's death when he was at his peak. One could see that this person was not to be underestimated. Yi Qinghan stared at Swan Padian and took a deep breath before asking, "Swan Padian, what are you trying to do? Since you can calculate everything, why do you need my help?" Swan Padian proudly smiled and confidently replied, "This old man is naturally known as Swan Padian. Naturally, there is nothing that I don't know and nothing that I don't know. In this world, no one can escape from my palm. However, there are some things that I can't predict, but you can create a complete and flawless world?" Yi Qinghan frowned and asked, "Correct. You can create a world that I want and give it to this old man. I will give you a favor and give you the chance to see Bai Zhe again. Now it's up to you to choose, is your dream more important or your woman more important?" Swan Padian indifferently said, "You want my world, no problem. But you have to answer a few of my questions." Yi Qinghan firmly said. Swan Padian hesitated for a moment because there were many things that he couldn't let Yi Qinghan know. "Ask away, I may not tell you." Swan Padian thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. "First, how did the Bai Zhe clan go extinct? Who killed the Bai Zhe saintess?" Yi Qinghan stared at Swan Padian and coldly asked. "Survival of the fittest. The Bai Zhe clan controls great fortune, but it doesn't mean that they can pass down their inheritance forever. The heavens can still take them. Wait until you cultivate a complete world, then you will understand that as long as you don't transcend the world, death is certain." Swan Padian slowly explained, "As for the Bai Zhe saintess, she was killed by the 10 great foreign races. Because the Bai Zhe clan didn't want to borrow their fortune, the 10 great foreign races were annihilated. This is also the result of the heavens' selection. They are no longer suitable for this world, so they naturally need to be replaced." 10 great foreign races survivors. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. The giant blood clan was also one of the 10 great foreign races. At this moment, he could also be considered a survivor because he inherited the giant blood clan's inheritance. Second, I also didn't have the ability to create a complete world back then, so why did you choose me? Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. Because the other 7 are all trash. Choosing the best from the trash is something that can't be helped. Swan Padian sneered with disdain. "Kache?" Yi Qinghan clenched his fists as he stared at Swan Padian. The old man in front of him was like an abyss, impossible to see through. "Why did you send Xiao Yu to me?" Yi Qinghan asked. Swan Padian raised his eyebrows and replied angrily, "Do you even need to ask me that? Are you out of your mind?" "It's because your cultivation was too weak. If it wasn't for him, you would have died long ago. I helped you time and time again, but you always suspected that I had bad intentions. If I really wanted to harm you, you wouldn't have had the chance to reincarnate. It was me who gave you a chance in the primal chaos realm, allowing you to reincarnate time and time again. Otherwise, how could you reincarnate 9 times without any consciousness? Just because the Bai Zhe saintess gave you a bit of fortune?" Yi Qinghan suddenly felt a chill down his spine. If what Padian said was true, then wouldn't his fate have always been controlled by 2 people? One was the creator of the world, the other was Padian. "You're the one who controls the 9-world sky, the one who splits the 9 worlds? You're the one who has always controlled my fate?" Yi Qinghan sternly asked. However, Padian shook his head and calmly replied, "Your fate is not controlled by me. It's always been your own path. You're not within the rules. I can only slightly control it, but I can't control it. Haven't you noticed? Your soul can cultivate things from outside the 9 worlds. You still haven't answered me. Are you the one who splits the 9 worlds? Yi Qinghan asked again. Yes or no, it doesn't make a difference to you. Now, you just have to answer me. Are you willing to give me the complete world you created? I'll only give you this one chance. If you miss it, you'll miss Bai Zhe, you'll miss everything. Padian said firmly. Giving away the world he created to someone else was the same as giving away his Tao fruit. Moreover, it was impossible to create a second world. At that time, his strength would drop by 80%. In the end, he would only be like an ordinary realm lord. Just like Xue Wudi and the others, he wouldn't be able to go any further. Yi Qinghan didn't agree back then, and he didn't want to agree now. It wasn't that the Bai Zhe Saintess wasn't important, but once he agreed, he could only be Potion's slave for life. He would never be able to escape from Potion's grasp. One last question. I want to know what you want to do with my world? Yi Qinghan was very curious about Potion's ultimate goal. This guy was the only person he couldn't see through. No, he could only say that he was a demon. To surpass myself. The energy of this 9 worlds isn't enough for me to reach the step of eternal life. However, your world, as long as time permits, is equivalent to another 9 worlds. With the 2 worlds working together, I can break through the shackles and become a legend. Padian suddenly became excited. His calm mood finally fluctuated. Yi Qinghan was silent. This Swan Padian had already transcended. Although he wasn't truly immortal, to the Realm Lord, he was an immortal. He had even witnessed the rise and fall of the Whitefin clan. I'll think about it. I'll give you an answer in a year. Yi Qinghan threw out an answer after thinking for a moment. Padian smiled and wasn't angry. He faintly said, No problem. I've waited for you for countless years. 1 year doesn't matter. Even 10 years is fine. Yi Qinghan turned and left. His figure quickly disappeared from Potion's line of sight. Padian looked at Yi Qinghan's disappearing figure and revealed a sinister smile that made people shudder. Looks like this old man still needs to beat you up and teach you a lesson. Otherwise, you won't know the immensity of heaven and earth and still want to play tricks in front of me. Padian coldly snorted. The space around him distorted and he disappeared without moving. Half a day later, at the border between Great Wasteland Domain and Snow Country, Padian stopped revered god Wu Ji and the 6 demons' demon lords. Revered god Wu Ji and the 6 demons' demon lords knew Padian. Seeing him appear, they were overjoyed. Mr. Padian, we've been looking for you for a long time. However, you've always been elusive. We couldn't find you at all. Revered god Wu Ji said excitedly. Padian was a scheming old man. He pretended to be mysterious. He pinched his fingers and lightly said, Are you looking for the Desolate Lord? The 6 demons' demon lords and revered god Wu Ji clapped their hands in joy. Looks like this Padian was truly a genius. He could really calculate the heavens and earth. Nothing could be hidden from him. Mr. Padian is truly a god. Revered god Wu Ji praised. Chapter 1506. Reverend God Wu Ji and Demon Lord 6 demons were excited. This Swan Padian had a mysterious origin, as though nothing could be hidden from him. As long as he could calculate the location of the Desolate Lord, then the Desolate Lord would have nowhere to run. Swan Padian smiled but didn't say anything. His old face looked kind and gentle, but those who understood him, such as Yi Qinghan or Xiao Yu, knew that he was about to start scheming. Mr. Swan, if you have any difficulties, please tell us. Reverend God Wu Ji said anxiously. Offending the Desolate Lord won't benefit me at all. Instead, I'll be hunted down by him. Swan Padian smiled. Mr. Swan, you don't have to worry. As long as you tell us where the Desolate Lord is, I won't let him have the chance to take revenge on you. Reverend God Wu Ji said seriously. Swan Padian pretended to hesitate, causing the 2 realm lords to frown. They were both old monsters. How could they not know what the other party was thinking? Reverend God 6 demons said straightforwardly, Mr. Swan, please tell us what you want. That's right, the Desolate Lord must die. Mister, please tell us what you want. Demon Lord 6 demons also said straightforwardly. Swan Padian chuckled and said, I want your ultimate profundities, the ultimate profundities of martial profundities, and the ultimate profundities of demon profundities. If you agree, I can personally bring you to find the Desolate Lord and cooperate with you to suppress him." Demon Lord 6 demons and Reverend God Wu Ji were stunned. This was their source power, equivalent to a forbidden technique, only passed down to their disciples and descendants. They didn't expect Swan Padian to want two source profound. Swan Padian calmly looked at the two and said, "You can consider it. Right now, the Desolate Lord's cultivation is advancing rapidly. If this old man doesn't help you find him, even if you find him, it'll be too late." Demon Lord 6 demons and Reverend God Wu Ji weren't willing, but what Swan Padian said was true. Who knew what realm the Desolate Lord was at now? If they couldn't find him in 300 to 500 years, by the time they found him, he'd already be a realm lord. With the 7 realms working together, who knew who would win? The two glanced at each other and then at Swan Padian. They realized that he didn't care, but he was looking forward to it. No matter how strong he wasn't perfect. Only by collecting all the Realm Lord's strengths and comprehensions could he continue to perfect himself. Only then could he become immortal. Even if the heavens and earth were to be destroyed, he would not perish. Good. We agree. Hierarch Wu Ji and the 6 demon supremacies pondered for a long time before nodding with gritted teeth. An unimaginable deal was completed. They had used their origin to exchange for the position and life of the Desolate Master. It showed how much they feared the existence of the Desolate Master. The 3 of them turned around and returned to the Great Wasteland, heading straight for the Western Desert Impasse. The Holy City was still being rebuilt. Yi Qinghan returned to the Holy City and closed his eyes to cultivate again. But not long after, he opened his eyes again. He felt that something was amiss. Why aren't revered God Wu Ji and the 6 demons here yet after causing such a huge commotion? Yi Qinghan frowned. Something was definitely wrong when things were out of the ordinary. He could not afford to be careless. Yi Qinghan frowned in thought. He wanted to predict the future, but after thinking for a long time, he still couldn't figure out where he had gone wrong. Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed the divine bird that was lying on the ruins. The divine bird looked at Yi Qinghan in confusion and muttered, "What are you doing? Help me analyze the current situation. I caused such a huge commotion that Hierarch Wu Ji and the rest must have sensed it. But they didn't appear. Previously, Swan Padian came to find me and forced me to hand over my world, but he wasn't in a hurry to let me say anything. What are they doing?" Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. The divine bird looked up at the sky and thought for a while before saying, "If I were those 2 realm lords, I would definitely come back. Regardless of whether you are the Desolate Master or not, I would kill you before you stabilized your realm. Then I would find the Desolate Master. If I were Swan Padian, from what you said, this old thing is definitely a treacherous person. He is not much better than me. So, he would definitely find a way to suppress you and force you to agree to his conditions. So, I would join forces with the Realm Lords to cripple or even kill your original body. You would be alone and have no choice but to submit." Yi Qinghan's pupils constricted and he suddenly stood up. This bastard couldn't have found the 2 Realm Lords and ran to the Western Desert Impasse, right? The divine bird suddenly asked. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He pulled the divine bird and said, "Follow me." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan crazily rushed towards the great desolate world. He shrunk the ground into an inch and twisted space. His figure flashed past. At this moment, every second counted. Any delay would change the situation. Yi Qinghan crazily chased after him while Hierarch Wu Ji, Swan Padian and the 6 demon sovereigns crazily rushed towards the Western Desert. Far away in the Western Desert, Yi Qinghan's original body had already launched the fiercest attack. He wanted to kill all the experts of the 7 realm lords that remained in the Western Desert. In the depths of the Western Desert, countless terrifying beasts were born. They didn't care where the humans were from. If they encountered Yi Qinghan, they would kill him. If they encountered the experts of the 7 realm lords, they would also chase after them. Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, Yan Yunbei and the others were in a difficult situation. They had to kill the experts of the 7 realm lords and evade the beasts. The journey became even more dangerous. The battle was soul-stirring. Blood flowed like rivers. Many places in the western desert were razed to the ground. Miserable cries echoed in the forests and mountains. The original body's realm was slowly increasing. There was no need to cultivate because the clone's realm was too high. Even if he couldn't sense it, it would still increase. If the two were to gather, their souls could sense each other. The speed of advancement would be even faster. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan couldn't use the Great Wasteland Monument and couldn't display his battle strength. The power he could erupt with was inferior to Jiang Jingtian and the others. At this moment, he could only hide. In front, a powerful human appeared in his vision. He was fighting with a beast. Mountains were turned into dust and ancient trees were shattered. Blood dyed the sky. Yi Qinghan retracted his aura and stared at the battlefield. He recognized the human expert. It was the first-generation sect leader of the Snow God sect, Snow God King. His cultivation had reached the peak of the pseudo-realm Lord Realm. His battle strength was overwhelming and he was currently suppressing the beast. Shua! A sharp sword appeared in Yi Qinghan's hand. He was waiting for an opportunity. Sha sha sha! Yi Qinghan approached the battlefield. His eyes were like lightning. Boom! Oh. The beast's thigh was pierced through by the Snow God King's sword. It let out a miserable cry. However, it swung its huge tail and sent the Snow God King flying. However, it didn't heavily injure him. Die! Xiao 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 at the Snow God King was majestic. His sword transformed into hundreds of sword shadows. Each sword carried dense killing intent and surrounded the beast. The beast couldn't dodge and could only open its bloody mouth and charge at the Snow God King, hoping that both sides would be injured. Pucci.csisi. The Snow God King's sword chi pierced through the beast's lower jaw. It was badly mangled and dyed the surroundings red. The beast fought back desperately and bit at the Snow God King. The Snow God King immediately retreated. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's figure moved. He crushed the rocks under his feet and appeared behind the Snow God King. The Snow God King was shocked. He quickly turned around and counterattacked. However, he couldn't dodge and his chest was pierced through. His sword swept towards Yi Qinghan's neck. If Yi Qinghan didn't dodge, his head would be chopped off. Chapter 1507. Boom! Yi Qinghan's sword pierced through Snow God King's chest. Even his heart was pierced through. His body was stuck in the mountain peak. What? Snow God King saw Yi Qinghan's face clearly. His pupils dilated and he was shocked. He slashed his sword towards Yi Qinghan's head. Boom! Yi Qinghan swung his left fist and smashed the Snow God King's right wrist, directly breaking it. The divine sword in her hand flew out, and the sharp sword was flung to the lower mountain peak. Desolation Master? Snow God King struggled and wanted to break the divine sword. However, he only managed to say 2 words before his throat was grabbed by Yi Qinghan. Boom! Gotcha! Yi Qinghan let go of the divine sword. His right hand's huge fist smashed into Snow God King's head. His head was smashed like a watermelon. His soul was hit by the terrifying physical attack and dissipated on the spot. Arat the soul let out a mournful cry, causing the souls of the surrounding weak creatures to be pierced. Snow God King, your divine sect has been destroyed. Go down and join them. Yi Qinghan smirked. He used his Sector Lord soul to attack Snow God King's broken soul. Wah! The Snow God King's soul was broken in an instant, disappearing into thin air with unwillingness. Yi Qinghan pulled out his divine sword. Snow God King's body fell and smashed into the abyss. Snow God King's divine sword was also taken away by Yi Qinghan. It was a pseudo-world treasure after all and was very rare. Yi Qinghan disappeared into the forest and went deeper and deeper. Danger lurked in every corner. Even a seemingly harmless flower could kill someone. Anyone who touched the poisonous gas would die. It was extremely vicious. Yi Qinghan's sense of danger was very strong. Looking at the dense fog in the mountains, he did not know if it was a threat from the danger zone or from the outside world. Ingda Yi Qinghan roared, reminding Jiang Jingtian and the rest to gather. Shua shua shua. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Three silhouettes were running at high speed. Except for Lin Wutian, all three of them were rushing in the direction of Yi Qinghan. Half a day later, Yan Yunbei was the first to arrive at Yi Qinghan's side, followed by Gu Qingyu and Jiang Jingtian. What's the situation? Gu Qingyu was the first to ask. Yi Qinghan hesitated for a moment, then frowned and said, I'm not sure either. The sense of danger is getting stronger and stronger. I don't know if it's from this danger zone or from the world lords outside. His original body had reached the peak of the pseudo-world lord realm, but there was still a gap between him and his clone. However, when he used the Great Wastelands tablet, he could instantly destroy a pseudo-world lord at the peak, not even giving them the chance to escape. Even so, his heart was still beating wildly. One could see how terrifying the danger was. According to my current situation, my clone has already reached the peak of the pseudo-world lord realm. Moreover, the spirit chi and world energy were clearly abnormal a few days ago. My clone should have broken through, but he didn't gather. He should be trying to confuse the 7 world lords and by time to reach the world lord realm. We don't have to find him. Now that the sense of danger is so strong, we can only choose one of the two and enter the depths of the danger zone. I think even if the world lords work together, they wouldn't be able to find us in the depths. Yi Qinghan analyzed. But I'm worried that Swan Padian will interfere. That old bastard is unfathomable and can predict the heavens and earth. It won't be difficult for him to find my exact location. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. In the end, he still suspected Swan Padian. When Swan Padian was mentioned, the three's expression didn't look good. Yi Qinghan had specially warned the arrogant sect members not to attack Swan Padian. It could be seen how terrifying this person was. Then it seems like we can only head towards the depths. Jiang Jingtian took a deep breath. No matter how dangerous the depths were, they had to take the risk. All right, it's dangerous in the depths. Let's not split up. Yi Qinghan nodded and replied. The 4 of them didn't speak as they moved forward silently. With the 4 experts working together, even the beasts would have to avoid them. In front of them was a desert. The forest was isolated. It was a wonder that there was such a large desert in this ancient danger zone. However, just as they stepped into the desert, Yi Qinghan suddenly stopped moving forward. The desert was moving. The sand wasn't still but could move like a living creature. Yan Yunbei and the other 2 also noticed this strange situation and were shocked. Whoosh! A poisonous snake swam out from the desert. Its speed was fast as if it was flying. It could soar even without wings and disappeared in a flash. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The speed of the sand's movement was obviously faster. It kept rushing towards the depths and gradually formed a human figure. The 4's pupils shrank. They had never seen a lifeless sand that could gather into a human. Moreover, it carried a terrifying fire energy. Sandman, one of the top 10 foreign races. It was on par with the giant blood race. However, these creatures didn't have flesh and blood but had souls. Humans. This is a forbidden land for humans. You deserve to die. The Sandman spoke in human language. Its voice was very harsh. Yi Qinghan frowned. He didn't know about the top 10 foreign races. However, he felt that it was familiar as if he had heard of it before. However, that part of his memory was blurry. The top 10 foreign races didn't have any luck. After the desolation, they were forced to a dead end by humans. A few races were directly exterminated. As for the rest, only a few survivors survived. However, those who survived were definitely experts. Otherwise, Bai Zhe wouldn't have been chased and killed, forcing Yi Qinghan to retreat. Desolate Sandmen? Yi Qinghan murmured. A name flashed in his mind. However, he didn't know any more details. Retreat. Yan Yunbei was the most vigilant. He pulled Yi Qinghan and quickly retreated from the desert. The Sandman moved and instantly covered the place where the 4 were standing. Even the desert sunk and was covered by sand. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and quickly said, Desolate Sandman, we don't have any evil intentions. We just want to pass by. Desolate Sandman and humans have nothing to talk about. This is our final resting place. If you dare to offend us, even the Sector Lord will die. Whoosh! Sand filled the air and enveloped the four, blocking their divine sense. The sand spun rapidly and separated the four. The sand carried killing intent. Under the high-speed rotation, it could even injure a fake sector lord's body. The four's clothes were cut open and snow covered their bodies. Boom! The four released their chi at the same time, wanting to block the sand's attack. However, the sand ignored their divine power defense. The Sandman condensed a long sword and pierced through the sand mist, attacking Yen Yunbei. Yen Yunbei was a top-notch assassin. Without any hesitation, he rolled and dodged the attack. Based on the rocks on the ground, he was able to determine the direction and rushed into the forest. Looking at the fog soaring into the sky and enveloping the other three, he couldn't help but be shocked. He couldn't see the three's exact location and couldn't tell them how to escape. He could only pick up huge rocks and tree branches from the outside and throw them into the fog. Shio that the tree branches shot out like sharp swords towards the Sandman. However, the Sandman seemed to be transparent. When the tree branches pierced through, only some fine sand flowed into the desert. Very quickly, it gathered again without any effect. Chapter 1508. The Sandman was strange and hard to defend against. Jiang Jingtian and Gu Qingyu waved their divine weapons but could not attack the Sandman's soul. The sand would scatter upon contact and immediately gather back. They could not harm it at all. Yi Qinghan did not dare to make any big moves. Once the Great Wasteland Monument's power fluctuated, it would be hard to hide from the approaching Realm Lord. Desolate Sandman, I don't want to bicker with you. Retreat immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Yi Qinghan dodged continuously. Zhong Kuang and Yu Ling Yi were in the hands of the doppelganger, so he could not use the Great Wasteland Monument. Lowly human, the fine sand was like a blade, surging in all directions. It was hard to open one's eyes. A strand of energy swept past Yi Qinghan's face. Yi Qinghan's waist was twisted. The fine sand blade slashed across his forehead, cutting off a strand of hair. A ghastly wound appeared on his face. If his reaction was slightly slower, Yi Qinghan's head would have been chopped off. Boom! The fine sand blade hit the desert but did not cause any damage. It merged with the desert. Yi Qinghan was furious. He raised his hand and the Great Wasteland Monument was thrown out. The Great Wasteland Monument rushed hundreds of meters high and then expanded infinitely, covering the entire desert. Suppress! Boom! The Great Wasteland Monument pressed down on the desert and sucked the Sandman into it. Damn it, since you want to die, I'll grant you your wish. Yi Qinghan was truly enraged and had no choice but to use the Great Wasteland's tablet. However, the moment he did so, the entire western desert was alarmed. In the blink of an eye, the entire world became silent. Even the birds didn't dare to fly and fell from the sky. The desolate Sandman realized that it had offended the wrong person. It panicked and its soul crashed into the Great Wasteland Monument. It almost fainted and screamed, "Lord, please spare me. I was wrong." You were wrong? Now that my identity has been exposed, you tell me you were wrong? If you were wrong, you have to pay the price. If begging was useful, why would there be so many killings? Yi Qinghan was incomparably cruel. He used the Great Wasteland Monument to surround the Sandman's soul. The desolate Sandman screamed and roared in despair. Seeing Yi Qinghan's resolute attitude, he hurriedly knelt down. "Please spare my life, esteemed Lord. I'm the only one left in my clan. You can't let the inheritance of my clan be destroyed in my hands. Please, esteemed Lord, be merciful and spare my life. I'm willing to submit to you as a slave." Yi Qinghan was infuriated. This fellow did not have the battle prowess of a world master and was extremely difficult to defeat, much less injure his body or soul. As a last resort, Yi Qinghan had used the Great Wasteland's tablet and even exposed his identity, but this fellow had surrendered in the blink of an eye. Don't worry about it for now. We have to leave this place as soon as possible. Just now, the aura of the Great Wasteland's monument was so strong. Our position must have been exposed. Yen Yunbei hurriedly reminded. "You're escaping? I have a good place to go. That is the gathering place of the non-human kind. Without us, the non-human kind, leading the way, no one can enter or find it. When the desolate Sandman heard this, he immediately wanted to make a contribution. In order to escape, he even exposed the gathering place of the non-human kind. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and coldly said, "Lead the way. Don't play any tricks. Otherwise, even if you have 10 lives, I can still kill you. Cross the desert and continue deeper. There is a canyon towards the south." The desolate Sandman immediately said. Just a moment ago, the aura of the great wastelands rushed into the galaxy. Billions of miles of space-time seemed to have solidified and was filled with the aura of the great wastelands. That tyrannical and desolate aura made people despair. Far away in the great wastelands domain, Swanpodin and the others immediately felt it. They looked towards the depths of the western desert and saw strange phenomena in the sky. Dark clouds covered the sky, but in the center, there was a deep hole. It seemed like it was going to swallow everything, and a terrifying creature was about to rush out. It's the desolate lord. He is indeed alive. Revered God Wuji was shocked. He was unable to determine Yi Qinghan's true cultivation realm, and his hands and feet turned cold. The 6 demon sovereigns were also somewhat afraid. After all, the great wasteland's lord had fought against 7 of them and wasted many years to kill them. Now, with just the 2 of them and Swanpodian, they didn't have much chance of winning. They didn't understand Swanpodin and only thought that he was someone who understood the heavenly Tao and used metaphysics to calculate everything. At the crucial moment, they still had to rely on battle strength. However, they didn't know that Swanpodin was an unfathomable paragon. It's fine. At this moment, he clearly knows that you are looking for him, but he still used the Great Wastelands Monument. This means that he met an existence that he couldn't resist and had no choice but to use the Great Wastelands Monument. In the Western Desert, there is no existence that can threaten the life of a realm lord. Yet, he could only use the Great Wastelands Monument. This means that his cultivation isn't even at the peak of the fake realm lord realm. Swanpodian calmly explained. Hearing Swanpotion's words, the 2 realm lords' expressions became slightly better. Let's chase after him before he runs too far. Swanpodian looked at the 2 and revealed a trace of disdain. In his eyes, only Yi Qinghan was decent. The other realm lords were just useless trash. Xiao, the 3 quickly rushed towards the western desert. Their speed was so fast that they couldn't be seen. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's clone also rushed into the Great Wastelands world and was as fast as lightning with the divine bird. Once they entered the Great Wastelands, the clone immediately merged with the Great Wastelands and quickly sensed the figures of Hierarch Wuji and the 6 demon lords. However, he couldn't sense Swanpotion's location. However, he could clearly sense a faint aura beside the 2 of them. To be able to reach this realm, other than Swanpodian, there was no one else. Bitch. As expected, it's you who is controlling my fate. You want to threaten me and kill my true body. Yi Qinghan was enraged. He clenched his fist and actually rushed towards the southwest. Hey, there's no path there. It's all deep mountains and poisonous miasma. The divine bird shouted. Yi Qinghan coldly snorted and coldly said, "This is my mother world. I understand it better than anyone. With my speed, I can't catch up to them. I can only take a shortcut." Hearing this, the divine bird calmed down. The people from all 3 sides were rushing towards their destination, racing against time. The clone shuttled back and forth, ignoring the poisonous miasma and the towering mountains. His figure constantly turned and dove in the air. At this moment, the 3 experts entered the western desert and began to rush towards Yi Qinghan's true body. Their auras were like rainbows, and their auras had already rushed into the depths of the desert. Yi Qinghan's true body crossed the desert and looked back. He only sensed the auras of the 2 great realm lords and didn't sense Swanpotion's presence. The sense of danger became more and more intense. Suddenly, he looked towards the northeast. His eyes were filled with shock and ecstasy. The clone actually came in. Yi Qinghan muttered. The closer the clone and the true body were to each other, the more they could sense each other. At this moment, Their souls were connected and they could inform each other even if they were countless miles away. The true body informed Yi Qinghan of the exact location and accelerated towards the gathering place of the other races. A few rays of light appeared in the sky and chased each other. The western desert quietened down. This was a battle between realm lords and no one dared to participate. Chapter 1509. Far away in the southwest, there was a natural barrier that was covered by an invisible barrier. If one didn't pay attention, one wouldn't be able to see it. The desolate Sandman came out of the Great Wasteland's monument but didn't dare to make any strange movements. He gathered a portion of the fine sand into his body and stood respectfully beside Yi Qinghan. He said humbly, "Esteemed Lord, this mountain looks real but it's just a projection. It doesn't really exist. The outside of the mountain is blocked by a barrier. It's just like the real thing. Only we, the other races, can enter the barrier. Once we enter the barrier, there's another world." Yi Qinghan looked curiously at the mountain range that reached the clouds. It was endless. If not for the desolate Sandman's reminder, he wouldn't be able to see that it was a smokescreen. "Bring us in. We will only hide here and won't disturb the other races. The prerequisite is that you don't provoke me," Yi Qinghan warned. The desolate Sandman nodded. At this moment, he was already convinced by Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's advancement speed was too fast. Previously, he was still at the peak of the pseudo-sector Lord realm and had just broken through. Now, he could break through to the absolute circle realm at any time. His avatar and main body could already communicate with their souls. Their realms should be connected and their strength would slowly be balanced. The Sandman pulled Yi Qinghan's sleeve and bowed, "Esteemed Lord, please don't use your god power. Just follow me into the barrier." Yi Qinghan was very calm. He quietly followed the desolate Sandman into the barrier. After taking a step, there was a completely different world. Spiritual energy assailed their nostrils. The entire world was filled with an ancient charm. There were tall mountains, flowing rivers, blooming peach blossoms. It was very peaceful. There was no hostility or killing intent. Strange races kept appearing in front of them. However, they could all coexist peacefully. There were far more than 10 of them. There were also some natives. They formed a decently sized city. Shot at the moment Yi Qinghan appeared, a strange sound came from the forest beside him. A few green vines approached with intense hostility. The primitive Sandman hurriedly stopped Green Vine and explained, "This exalted one is a friend, not an enemy. He's being hunted by humans from the outside world. We should work together." Green Vine seemed to be controlled by someone. It was just that it had eagle eyes. Green Vine immediately retreated when it heard the Sandman's words. "Bring him into the city." A hoarse voice sounded out. It was deep and forceful, and it was filled with the dignity of the Grand Tao. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes and looked into the city. He knew that the voice came from a certain cultivator in the city, so he took the initiative to walk towards the city. Many eccentrics stared at Yi Qinghan with intense hostility. Their hatred came from their bones. This was a racial hatred because their ancestors had been killed by humans. Yi Qinghan clenched his iron fists and summoned the Great Wasteland's steel at any moment. The primitive Sandman was also very anxious. Yi Qinghan had a world artifact and his combat strength was terrifying. If they really fought, the gathering place would be flattened. "Exalted One, we do hate humans. As long as you can explain patiently, they will not attack. Please be magnanimous. This is our last place to survive." The primitive Sandman explained anxiously. Yi Qinghan had mixed feelings about the foreign races. He had just learned from his avatar that the 10 foreign races were the murderers of the Bays Saintis. He did not know if he should continue this hatred. After all, this hatred came from the extermination of a race. If Bays had been willing to lend a helping hand, even if the 10 foreign races could not contend against the sudden emergence of humans, they would not have been exterminated. Only a few of them were left alive. Sigh, Yi Qinghan sighed softly and walked in with the primitive Sandmen. Boom! The first to block the city gate was a burly giant that was dozens of feet tall. He was exuberant and seemed to be on fire. Giant blood race. There was actually a giant blood race. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. The information from his avatar showed that the giant blood race was very powerful. Within the same realm, they were not inferior to the desolate lord. Human. The giant blood race expert stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. He was emotionless and wished he could crush him with a single palm. Yi Qinghan took a step back and stared at the giant blood race expert. He said in a low voice, "I know a giant blood race inheritor. He has the giant blood race's supreme stone sword. We are not enemies." "What? My giant blood race has an inheritor? The supreme stone sword is also in his hands?" This time, the giant blood race expert was shocked. He looked at Yi Qinghan excitedly and roared, "Where is he? Tell me." Boom, boom, boom. The sound was like thunder. It rumbled continuously and reverberated within the city. What at the city gate also became lively. To the foreign race experts, this was great news. It could not be any better. This was because one more expert meant one more chance of survival for the foreign races. Swish, swish, swish. Several powerful figures appeared in front of the city gate. The one in the lead was an old man with white hair. He did not look much different from a human, but there was a horn on his forehead. It was as thick as a child's arm. As for his specific strength, it could only be known when he erupted with power. Beside the old man was a fairy-like woman. She was beautiful beyond words and had a pair of transparent wings on her back. She was about 1.75 meters tall and wore a blue divine robe. She had a valiant appearance and her large eyes were bright and full of expression. They were incomparably deep as she looked at Yi Qinghan curiously. There were several other old men with terrifying cultivations. They were peak-perfect circle existences. They held divine weapons in their hands as they stared at Yi Qinghan. "Human, is what you said true? Is there really an inheritor of the giant blood tribe who is still alive with the supreme stone sword?" The white-haired old man in the lead looked at Yi Qinghan expectantly and asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan nodded and took a step back. He cupped his fists and said, "That's right. That person is my friend. He should be able to arrive here within half a month. Everyone, I am the reincarnation of the Great Desolate Domain's Lord. I have countless people in the Great Desolate Domain, but they were all killed by the combined forces of the Seven Realms. In terms of hatred, I have a deeper hatred than all of you. Ha! My tribe still has an inheritor. The Supreme Stone Sword has returned. I will inform the old ancestor." The giant blood tribe man was unable to contain his excitement. He turned around and ran into the depths of the city. The fairy-like woman looked voluptuous and charming. She stared at Yi Qinghan as if she wanted to know if Yi Qinghan was telling the truth. She sensed Yi Qinghan's emotional fluctuations and soul fluctuations. Only when she realized that Yi Qinghan was not lying did she let down her guard. "Should we expel him from the gathering place? He will attract the experts of the Seven Realms and bring disaster to us." A foreign race expert behind the white-haired old man reminded in a deep voice. In a split second, the foreign race experts in the gathering place were divided. Most of them supported expelling Yi Qinghan, but there were also some who believed that they should join forces to deal with the human experts. The white-haired old man and the fairy-like woman looked at each other as if they were discussing how to deal with Yi Qinghan. Chapter 15:10. At the foreign race's gathering place, everyone was discussing. Most of them didn't support keeping Yi Qinghan. After all, Yi Qinghan would attract experts to destroy this last piece of pure land. The desolate Sandman understood Yi Qinghan the best. If an expert really came looking for him, even if Yi Qinghan left, they would still kill the alien race once they discovered this place. Hence, it was better to leave Yi Qinghan behind. At the very least, he would be able to resist a world overlord. "Esteemed one, this human expert has a supreme artifact. It is enough to help us resist a human expert. In addition, the inheritor of the giant blood race has a supreme artifact. We might be able to counterattack and take back our territory." The desolate Sandman advised the horned foreign race elder in a soft voice. When the elder and the elf woman heard that Yi Qinghan had a supreme artifact, they immediately changed their attitude. They made the decision to keep Yi Qinghan here. Yi Qinghan didn't say a word and only looked on vigilantly. The two strongest experts were determined to keep Yi Qinghan here. The other foreign race experts could only nod in agreement. I am the heavenly scale race's patriarch, He Tianning. This is the spiritual race's patriarch, Fairy Ing Shui. The horned elder pointed at the elf woman and introduced. Before he could finish his explanation, a tall and sturdy figure appeared beside Yi Qinghan. His aura was so strong that it suppressed one's soul. Fairy Ing Shui and He Tianning were fine, but Yi Qinghan was shocked. He quickly dodged and hid behind Fairy Ing Shui. He almost summoned the Great Wasteland's tablet. A strong aura soared into the sky and pressed down on the newcomer. The tall and sturdy elder was exuberant. He was even more terrifying than the giant blood race. With a wave of his hand, heaven and earth rumbled and the earth trembled. His lantern-like eyes stared at Yi Qinghan. Brat, where is the inheritor of my race's supreme artifact? If you dare to lie to me, I will break your neck. The spirited elder looked down at Yi Qinghan. His voice shook the eardrums. Yi Qinghan's face darkened as he gloomily stared at the giant blood tribe expert. This is the patriarch of the giant blood tribe, Master Kuehu. Don't mind this human expert, he has a fiery temper. He Tianning pretended to laugh to ease the tension. Fairy Ing Shui turned her head and looked at Yi Qinghan warily. He seemed even colder than the other races. She wondered how bad this sense of security was. Mister, don't be angry. Master Kuehu was too anxious and impulsive. How should I address you? Ing Shui's voice was as melodious as the sounds of nature. Her faint tone could even make one's soul feel a sense of pleasure, as expected of a foreign race from the spirit race. The tall and sturdy old man was still staring nervously at Yi Qinghan. If not for the fact that Fairy Ing Shui was standing between them, he probably would have already rushed forward. The corners of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "Call me Desolate. He is on his way. He should be here in half a month." His main body carried the thick aura of the Great Desolate. It was fundamentally different from Yi Qinghan's avatar. His avatar carried the tyrannical aura of the giant blood tribe while his main body was becoming more and more like the Desolate Lord of the past. Perhaps he was the Desolate Lord. Every word and action of his was clearly different from the previous Yi Qinghan. At this time, he carried the thick majesty of an emperor that could not be blasphemed. Desolate? The three great powerhouses were startled. They frowned as they looked at Yi Qinghan. Great Desolate Lord of War? Fairy Ing Shui looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. It was as if she had seen a ghost. Her enchanting face was filled with surprise and doubt. Her cherry lips parted, revealing a row of pure white teeth. Although these foreign races were squeezed into this small place, they still had some understanding of the nine-world sky. Their spies were not only in the great desolate world. Apart from the Chaos Realm, they had spies in all 7 worlds. They naturally knew that the great desolate Lord of War had fought against 7 of them alone and died in the end. But they never imagined that he would appear here. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the great desolate tablet appeared in his hand. It emitted a billowing pressure to prove his identity. Hiss hiss hiss. The three sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Before this, the foreign races thought that Yi Qinghan was just a powerhouse of the great desolate world. They never imagined that he was the master of the great desolate world. But now, the three's attitudes were clearly different. So it is Lord Desolate Lord. My name is Ing Shui. Please forgive my rudeness. Fairy Ing Shui quickly bowed. Lord Kuei, whose old face paled and the corners of his mouth twitched. He wanted to apologize but felt embarrassed. But if he didn't apologize, this was the great desolate Lord of War. Once he recovered his cultivation, how terrifying would he be? If he offended such a person, he probably wouldn't even dare to sleep. It's fine. As the saying goes, when a tiger leaves the plains, it will be bullied by dogs. I am a stray dog now and don't care about the rules. Instead, I should thank you for taking me in. Yi Qinghan put away the great desolate tablet and took another step back, maintaining a certain distance from the three. Lord Desolate Lord, we can take you in, But we have a condition. Ying Shui and He Tianning said in unison. Yi Qinghan saw that the two's attitude was unusually firm and guessed that the condition must be extraordinary. He asked, "What condition?" Hearing this, He Tianning immediately looked at Fairy Ying Shui and nodded, indicating that she should state the condition. Ying Shui took a deep breath and said crisply, "We can cooperate with you to defeat the powerhouses of the 7 realms. But you have to promise that you will return the territories of the 10 great foreign races to us." Yi Qinghan frowned. If he agreed, it would be the same as starting another race war. This wasn't the result he wanted. "I want to unify the 9 worlds. I don't want another race war. You can return to where the humans live. But if you take away so much territory at once, where do you expect the humans to live?" Yi Qinghan retorted. Just as the experts of the foreign races were arguing, Swan Padian, Hierarch Wu Ji and the 6 Yao demon sovereigns had already appeared in the depths of the western desert. Swan Padian looked at the sky and crossed the desert. He brought the 2 realm lords to the obstructing mountain. Suddenly, Swan Padian laughed loudly. "You can wear out iron shoes in a fruitless search only to find it by chance. This old man has calculated many times but still hasn't found the exact location." The 10 great foreign races? The 2 sector lords knew very little about the other races. Back then, the humans had suddenly emerged, and the 10 great races had already declined. Their luck was no longer there, and they were quickly suppressed by the humans. The humans had very little information about the other races, only knowing that there were a few races, but not the specific details. The foreign races are all gathered here? Hierarch Wu Ji's killing intent soared. Even if he didn't know, he knew that the foreign races couldn't be left alive. The foreign races still haven't produced a realm lord. I want the life source of the 10 great foreign races and you want the desolate lord's life. How about it? Swan Padian smiled. The 2 realm lords glanced at each other and revealed a sinister smile. To them, Swan Padian was just a fortune teller. After using him, they could kill him. He wanted all the benefits. Hence, the 2 didn't object and directly nodded in agreement. Break the enchantment in front and the gathering place will naturally appear in front of us. Seeing that the 2 didn't object, Swan Padian pointed at the mountain and said, "The 2 realm lords' auras erupted. With 2 realm lords working together, what enchantment couldn't they break?" Boom! What the illusory mountain in front shattered and turned into dust. The entire gathering place of the foreign races appeared in front of their eyes. The foreign races in the gathering place were stunned. They looked at the 3 people who suddenly appeared in fear. Their eyes were filled with despair. Chapter 15:11. The gathering place of the foreign races wasn't big, only a few tens of thousands of miles. A realm lord could crush it with a single thought. The 3 great experts looked down and their auras caused the foreign race experts to tremble in fear, not daring to make any movements. Shuada Yi Qinghan, giant blood races Kuei Hu, spirit races Fairy Ying Shui, and sky scale races Patriarch He Tianning. The 4 of them rushed out of the city and looked at the 3 sovereigns. Other than Yi Qinghan, the rest were filled with fear and unwillingness. "I knew this jinx would bring disaster to us. It's all your fault for acting arbitrarily." A powerful raccoon man transformed into a raccoon man. His claws were cold and his eyes were like lightning as he roared furiously at He Tianning and Fairy Ying Shui. "Shut up. At this time, we should unite against the outside world." He Tianning said coldly without turning his head. "Ah, foreign races, this old man thought that they were all dead. I didn't expect there to be so many left. Spirit race, sky scale race, raccoon race, giant blood race." Hierarch Wu Ji looked at the city greedily and stared at Fairy Ying Shui. He couldn't help but lick his lips before finally locking his gaze on Yi Qinghan. "Desolate Lord, I didn't expect to meet you again. But it's a pity that the high and mighty realm lord that looked down on all living beings is now a stray dog that hasn't even reached the Great Circle realm. I really overestimated you." Hierarch Wu Ji's tone was filled with ridicule and mockery. The 6 demon sovereigns also licked their lips. They were drooling over Yi Qinghan's blood and qi. They wanted to devour his flesh and blood to improve their own. Yi Qinghan was too familiar with the 3 in front of him. In a daze, he felt as though he had returned to the Great Desolate Era. He couldn't help but clench his fists. After the Great Desolate Monument appeared, a terrifying monarch aura rushed into the sky and poured out without holding back. The true Great Desolate Warlord had appeared. Although his cultivation was much weaker than before, his pride and arrogance could still stand above all living beings. What the heaven and earth rumbled and multicolored lights flashed. Anomalies appeared. An ancient dragon soared in the 9 heavens, wanting to control the 9 worlds. Wu Ji, 6 demons, long time no see. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes and spoke in a low voice, as if he had just reunited with an old friend and was about to drink and chat. Yeah, it's been a long time. I thought I would never see you again. What a pity. The 6 demonic beasts shouted coldly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, dong dong. The foreign race expert behind Yi Qinghan could no longer control his heartbeat. He stared at Yi Qinghan's back in horror. It was as if he was the heavens themselves, insurmountable. Hissed at the appearance of an emperor could control the 9 heavens. His words and actions represented supremacy. Fairy Ying Shui and the other foreign race experts might have mastered their own divine abilities, but only now did they realize the gap between them and the Desolation Lord. In terms of cultivation, the original body wasn't even as high as Kuei-hu. However, Kuei-hu looked at Yi Qinghan's back as if he was looking at his ancestor. He didn't dare to compare himself to the Desolation Lord. Yi Qinghan no longer looked at the 2 supremes. Instead, he stared at Swan Padian with a smirk of disdain. Old thing, you dared to trick me and still want to cooperate with me? Yi Qinghan coldly reprimanded. Swan Padian laughed as his white hair fluttered in the wind. He stroked his beard and said indifferently, Desolation Lord, please don't be angry. This old man has no enmity with you, so I won't attack you. This time, I'm just passing by to watch the show. I don't want to ask about the matters of the past, and I won't interfere in this life either. No, you've already interfered. Aren't you afraid that he will find out and fight you to the death? Yi Qinghan's eyes were cold and ferocious as he angrily questioned. He was naturally referring to his avatar. Swan Padian and Swan Padian were well aware of this, but revered god Wu Ji and the 6 demon sovereigns didn't. They all looked at Swan Padian curiously as if they were puzzled. There's a deal between the 2 of you? Revered god Wu Ji didn't know what was good for him and coldly asked Swan Padian. Swan Padian didn't care about his attitude. In his opinion, among the 8 realm lords, only Yi Qinghan was decent. The others were trash that couldn't even withstand a single blow. Swan Padian ignored revered god Wu Ji and looked at Yi Qinghan's cold face. He shrugged and said, You know better than me that he's waiting for the 2 realm lords in the Snow Country and God World. By the time he realizes it, it's already too late. What a disdainful aura enveloped the area. Is that so? The voice was emotionless and made people shudder. Even the 2 realm lords were shocked and turned their heads. In the distance, a figure sped over, the stars moved, shuttling through time and space. Who else could it be other than his avatar? However, at this moment, Yi Qinghan's avatar was 2 zhang tall and wielded a huge stone sword. He came with the identity of the giant blood tribe's inheritor. Kuei-hu was overjoyed. The other races were overjoyed. Yi Qinghan's main body was emotionless, as if he didn't recognize his avatar. At this moment, the main body was using the Desolate Lord's appearance. Although the avatar's appearance was still Yi Qinghan, there was a clear difference between them. Other than a trace of aura, there was no other similarity. The avatar suddenly appeared not far from the main body and blocked the path of the 3 experts. His lips curled up and his eyes were filled with disdain and provocation as he stared at the 3 of them. His hand lightly shook and the stone sword emitted a sword chi that pierced the heavens and spread in all directions. Swan Padian, there's no benefit in playing with me, right? The avatar coldly questioned. Swan Padian quietly distanced himself from the 2 realm lords and said indifferently, I'll give you some pressure. This is a warning. Next time, you won't have another chance. No one can refuse what I want. Swan Padian didn't give anyone a chance to speak and directly disappeared in front of everyone. Even the 2 realm lords, Yi Qinghan's avatar and main body didn't see how he disappeared. The avatar took a deep breath. He was truly afraid that Swan Padian would interfere. Otherwise, he wouldn't have any chance at all. Giant blood race expert, please move aside. Our target is the Desolate Lord. As long as you're willing to move aside, the territory of the Great Desolate Domain will be controlled by you other races. Hierarch Wu Ji stared at Yi Qinghan's avatar and promised. Yi Qinghan's avatar grinned and didn't make a move. He was intentionally stalling for time so that the main body could comprehend the power and profoundness in his body and break through to the peak of the fake realm. As long as the main body broke through, these two realm lords might not be able to leave alive today. How can I believe that you won't kill the Desolate Lord and then join hands to deal with us other races? The avatar indifferently asked. Because your strength is already comparable to a realm lord. We don't need to offend you for a piece of land that no one wants. The 6 demon lords immediately explained. Great Desolate Domain? Yi Qinghan's avatar revealed a covetous expression and faintly said, it's truly a treasure land. However, I don't only want this. Shui Wudi is already crippled by me. Therefore, the snow country and God world is also ours. Hierarch Wu Ji and the 6 demon lords' eyes shrunk. They didn't expect Shui Wudi to be defeated. That old man's strength was on par with them. If this giant blood race expert could kill Shui Wudi, he could definitely kill them too. A trace of killing intent flashed across their eyes, but they concealed it very well. Following which, they nonchalantly said, no problem. Since you've occupied it, it's yours. Chapter 1512. In order to make Yi Qinghan's clone give way, revered god Wu Ji and the 6 demons agreed to any conditions. They thought they were very smart and could defeat them one by one. However, they didn't expect Yi Qinghan to buy them time. Yi Qinghan's main body didn't say a word and quickly merged with his clone's soul. The 2 souls were originally one. With such close proximity and strong perception, their realms were equal in a few breaths of time. Boom. The main body used the Great Desolation God power to break through the peak fake sector Lord Bottleneck. There was no need to hide anymore. The tyrannical Great Desolation War Lord had returned. His aura was like a rainbow, fighting the heavens, fighting the earth, fighting the 9 heavens. Once the Great Desolation Monument appeared, who could fight against him? Hua! The Desolation aura spread out. It was as though everything was returning to nothingness, returning to primal chaos, returning to the desolate era. The main body looked at the 2 sector lords. The anger in his eyes was almost tangible. His killing intent soared into the sky and his baleful aura stole their souls. The 2 sector lords and the other race experts' expressions changed greatly. It was as though they were facing a devil from hell. Wu Ji, 6 demons, I have let down the people of Great Desolation by allowing you to live for countless years. Today, your retribution has arrived. Yi Qinghan's main body looked down at the 2 paragons. His killing intent soared. The Great Desolation Monument continued to expand, wanting to suppress this world. Revered god Wu Ji was very shocked. This speed of advancement was too fast. However, he laughed sinisterly and mocked, Desolation Lord, do you think you are still in the Sector Lord realm? Now you are just an ant. Let's see who is the ant today. Yi Qinghan's main body laughed loudly. His clone also looked at each other. The 2 of them locked onto one person. The clone waved his hand and threw the giant blood tribe's stone sword to the giant blood tribe's patriarch, Kuehu. They had the same bloodline. With Yi Qinghan's clone's permission, the stone sword didn't resist and Kuehu could control it. Cooperate with Desolation Lord to kill the 6 demons. Leave this revered god Wu Ji to me. Yi Qinghan's clone said calmly. This is Shui Wudi's world treasure divine sword, Snow God Sword. I have already refined the sword spirit inside and handed it over to Li Feng. The clone handed over another divine sword. With a thought from the avatar, a figure rushed out from the Great Wastelands Monument. It was Li Feng. With the Snow God Sword in hand, his aura was like a rainbow. With a wave of his hand, he became one with the sword. Although he couldn't unleash the full power of the world weapon, with the Snow God Sword in hand, It was enough to pose a threat to a world lord. Fellow Taoist, didn't you say that you wouldn't participate? Revered Hierarch Wu Ji asked angrily. Yi Qinghan's doppelganger smiled wickedly and said sarcastically, "You must be dreaming. When did I agree not to participate in this matter? If I don't intervene, are you going to wait for you to kill him and then join hands to kill me?" Berserk appeared in his hand. The world treasure's might was vast and mighty. 4 great peak fake world lords and 4 great peak world treasures faced off against 2 world lords. However, the 2 world lords didn't have the slightest advantage. Be it Yi Qinghan's doppelganger or main body, a peak fake world lord could fight against a world lord. This was his advantage. Now that there was another peak fake world lord with a world treasure, it was a fatal advantage. Just as the battle broke out, the star-twining vine swallowed everything along the way. It turned into a round ball and rolled over from afar. The vine grew thicker and stronger. It was like a bottomless pit. Everything it ate was digested. It was evolving rapidly. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The green ball rolled bigger and bigger, faster and faster. Whoosh! Vines pierced through the void. They were as fast as lightning. Any beast that was entangled could be pierced through. If one of its legs was entangled, even a huge beast wouldn't be able to escape death. The beast screamed and struggled. However, its body quickly shriveled up. Its flesh and blood were devoured. Only skin and bones were left. There was no sign of life. The wild beasts fled frantically, automatically opening up a path for the star-twining vine. The flying beasts flew through the void and split into 2. The beasts fled frantically, pushing against the ancient trees and rocks. Boom! A loud explosion came from the depths. The battle between sector lords had begun. The berserk aura spread out for 10,000 miles. The first attack was launched. The saber howl shook 1,000 miles, cutting through the rocks and ancient trees. Everything was turned into rotten wood that couldn't withstand a single blow. Die! Boom! Yi Qinghan's clone launched his attack. His eyes locked onto revered god Wu Ji. His saber was merciless. Revered god Wu Ji didn't have any confidence in winning against the clone. After all, Shui Wudi was already dead. Therefore, the moment Yi Qinghan's clone erupted, he turned and rushed far away. The speed of a sector lord couldn't be tracked. However, Yi Qinghan's speed was faster. He suppressed revered god Wu Ji from above, forcing him to run along the cliff. The mountain was forcefully flattened by Yi Qinghan's clone, and the cliff was sliced apart. Swoosh, swoosh. Revered god Wu Ji fled frantically, hoping to exhaust Yi Qinghan's clone's strength. After all, no matter how strong Yi Qinghan's explosive strength was, the strength stored in his body couldn't be compared to a true sector lord. Revered god Wu Ji's plan was correct. Yi Qinghan's explosive strength was too strong, but the strength in his body was far from his. Such a battle method would eventually exhaust Yi Qinghan's clone's strength. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Yi Qinghan stepped on the rocks and changed directions very quickly. He was like a huge peng spreading its wings. Boom! At the gathering place of the foreign races, the Great Wastelands Monument reversed the situation of heaven and earth. More than 30 figures rushed out from the Great Wastelands Monument. They were the arrogant sex people and the primal chaos realm's older generation's supreme experts. Force him to the Great Wastelands. Yi Qinghan's original body was incomparably cold. His killing intent was set. Today, even if he had to give it his all, he would kill the 6 demon sovereigns. The 6 demon sovereigns sucked in a breath of cold air. They were originally afraid of the desolate lord and didn't even have the courage to fight him fairly. Furthermore, Yi Qinghan had so many absolute realm experts and pseudo-sector lords by his side. Desolate lord, you won't be able to escape. When the other sector lords return, let's see where you can run to. The 6 demon sovereigns roared and transformed into their original bodies. They had 6 heads and 12 arms, each holding a pseudo-world artifact. Only the 2 arms at the top held the true world artifact, the sky-sinking wood. The sky-sinking wood was an ancient divine wood that grew in the demon region. It could swallow the fortune of heaven and earth and suppress all evil. Even a world artifact couldn't harm its foundation. Before I die, I will kill you first. The original body didn't waste any more words. He held the Great Wastelands Monument, and with the help of the Sector Lord's soul, he suppressed the 6 demon sovereigns. Xiao 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 Boom. Li Feng and esteemed Lord Kuei, who worked together as they wielded their world weapons to attack the 6 devil supremacies from both sides. The world weapons were extremely sharp, and when combined with the battle strength of a great fulfillment realm, they were able to cut through space and time. When they struck the pseudo-world weapons in the hands of the 6 devil supremacies, they were almost shattered by the world weapons, even though the 6 devil supremacies were using their realms to reinforce them. Wang Ying Shui of the spiritual race opened her eyes and her mental energy exploded. She could actually freeze heaven and earth and press down on the arms of the 6 demon sovereigns holding the world artifacts. CSISI. The arms of the 6 demon lords suddenly paused for a moment. Even if it was only for a split second, it was still fatal to an expert like Yi Qinghan. Boom. Yi Qinghan's original body took the lead and smashed the Great Wastelands Monument on the arms. The 6 demon sovereigns were heavily injured in the first battle. At least 2 of their arms were broken. Their bodies flew back and screamed in pain. Chapter 1513. The 6 demon sovereigns were frightened and didn't have the confidence to continue fighting. After being injured in one move, they turned and fled. Flee. This was destined to be a tragedy. Pseudo-sector lords weren't much slower than sector lords in terms of speed. Although their battle strength wasn't as strong, their speed wasn't inferior. With the support of the sector artifact, the group rushed over. Yi Qinghan's original body was burning with anger. He controlled the Great Wasteland Monument and charged forward, chasing after them. Xiao 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 that numerous figures tore through the void and distorted time. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the depths of the western desert. Unfortunately, the 6 demon sovereigns were fleeing in the opposite direction of the star-twining vine. They were rapidly approaching the star-twining vine. Boom! The Great Wasteland Monument constantly attacked the 6 demon sovereigns. It had a short burst of power. The 6 demon sovereigns weren't as strong as the original body and could only exhaust Yi Qinghan's original body. However, the demon sovereigns were mainly focused on Yi Qinghan and didn't care about the ball rolling in front of them. The star-twining vine could feel Yi Qinghan's original body holding the Great Wasteland Monument and fighting against the sector lords from afar. It immediately increased its speed and rushed forward. When it was a few million miles away, it stopped. Xiao Xiao Xiao. Sha Sha Sha. The star-twining vine started to set up. Countless vines wrapped around the tall mountains and huge trees in the distance. The original body was hidden underground and was surrounded by countless vines. Even if the sector lords wanted to kill it, they would have to find the original body and break through both the rocks and the vines to kill it. The star-twining vine was even more afraid of death than the divine bird. Therefore, it set up dozens of fake points within a radius of 1,000 miles to make people think that the original body was hidden there. At this moment, even if Yi Qinghan came to find it personally, he would have to search for a long time before he could find the location of the star-twining vine's original body. Countless vines extended and rooted themselves in the ground. They then extended again and formed a cycle. A single star-twining vine actually turned into 1 trillion vines and occupied a few thousand miles of territory. Sha Sha Sha. The vines hung on the ancient trees and mountains, swaying with the wind and waiting for the 6 demon sovereigns to rush into the encirclement. After the star-twining vine finished setting up, it continuously sent out soul spirit ripples, hoping to contact Yi Qinghan. With the soul contract, Yi Qinghan could sense the soul fluctuations of the star-entangling vine from far away. He immediately contacted Li Feng and the others to force the 6 demon lords towards the star-entangling vine. Whooshed up more than 10 masters, including Fairy Ying Shui, increased their wills to form walls of wills, blocking the escape routes of the 6 demon lords. They could only move forward, which made it easier for the fully fledged masters to attack. Master Kuei, who transformed into a towering giant and roared out with a huge stone sword in his hand. His body was as big as a mountain as he chased after them relentlessly. Yi Qinghan's true body displayed the great desolate war physique. The great desolate godly force rushed out from the great desolate domain. The aura of desolation covered the sky and the earth, gradually rising. He could use the great desolate Tao scripture at any time. Once he used it, the world would collapse. Right now, Yi Qinghan's main body wasn't a paragon like Sector Lord. He still had to prepare many of his killer moves. However, the 6 demon lords didn't dare to attack, which gave Yi Qinghan a lot of time. The group of people was chasing the 6 demon lords like dogs. Such a situation had never happened before. A sector lord was being chased by a group of people who were not sector lords. Even if they had 3 boundary artifacts, it should not be possible. Unfortunately, the reputation of the desolate lord was too terrifying. The 6 demon lords were sweating profusely. Most of their divine senses were guarding their backs as they kept dodging. A large number of insane sect masters were throwing their weapons, which were all pseudo-boundary artifacts. It was enough to affect them to a certain extent. They kept dodging and had no time to pay attention to the front. Hundreds of thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles, they were getting closer and closer to the star-entangling vine. Furthermore, the 6 demon lords had run into the center of the star-entangling vine's defense. Once they entered, they could forget about escaping. The star-entangling vine was extremely excited. Its vines were moving slowly like a living flood dragon, tough and powerful. Gather energy and get ready to kill. Yi Qinghan transmitted a message to everyone, telling them to get ready to attack and kill the 6 demon lords in one go. Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, Mo Li, Lord Keihu, and even Tong Tong gritted their teeth and gathered energy, getting ready to throw out their divine weapons. Yi Qinghan had also gathered enough Great Wilderness divine power. He activated the Great Wastelands Monument and prepared to unleash his strongest attack. The 6 demon lords rushed into the encirclement of the star-twining vines, but before they could make it out of the range of 1,000 miles, countless vines shot up from the ground, one after another, and bound the 6 demon lords' legs and arms. Bang! The 6 demon lords were shocked. They swung the sky-sinking wood to cut off thousands of vines. However, in an instant, they were bound by thousands of vines again. Shio that thousands of vines shot out at the same time. However, they did not penetrate the 6 demon lords' bodies. Instead, they pulled the 6 demon lords down from the sky. Kill! Yi Qinghan activated the Great Wastelands Monument and descended from the sky. Its powerful aura crushed the 6 demon lords with earth-shattering momentum. Great Wilderness Tao Scripture's ultimate skill, Great Wilderness breaking the firmament. Suppress. Boom boom boom, boom boom boom. In an instant, the mountain crumbled and space-time was twisted. A wave of air pressed down on the ground. Together with the star-entangling vines, the 6 demon lords were pressed to the ground. At this moment, the 6 demon sovereigns had no chance of escaping. Their legs twisted and the heaven-sinking wood flew into the air, crashing towards the Great Wastelands tablet. However, if they couldn't send Yi Qinghan flying, they wouldn't be able to escape. Bang bang bang! Countless vines of the star-entangling vines grabbed his 12 arms and pulled them out with all their might, preventing him from unleashing his power. The vines kept breaking, but they were soon caught by other vines. The 6 demon lords were burning with anger. They roared continuously and shattered countless vines into dust. However, the star-entangling vines kept coming, as if there was no end to them. This drove them crazy. At this moment, the people of the insane sect, the previous generation of supreme kings, Keihu, He Tianing, and Fairy Ing Shui erupted. Jiang Jingtian was the first to throw the world-piercing spear. It was as powerful as a javelin. It distorted space-time and blasted the leg bones of the 6 demon lords. It spun around the leg bones like a drill and constantly pierced through their defenses. Immediately after, Li Feng's soul controlled the divine snow sword and shattered spacetime. Even the ground was shattered by the force of the sword. Puchi. The first sword pierced through the body of the 6 demon lords. The 6 demon lords screamed in agony. Their defenses were broken and they could not escape. Their arms were all entangled by the star-entangling vines. They could not even resist. Yi Qinghan suppressed the 6 demon lords single-handedly and controlled their bodies, forcing them to be beaten up. The lowly human. Whoosh.poochie.bang. Kuei-hu recovered to his 20 feet height and swept the army with his giant sword. Even the star-entangling vines were cut off. The stone sword shot out runes in all directions and destroyed everything in its path. It directly cut the bodies of the 6 demon lords in half. Ada boom! The 6 demon lords screamed in agony and their breaths stagnated. They were forcefully suppressed by Yi Qinghan. Bang! The Great Wasteland's tablet suppressed them to the ground and blood flowed everywhere. However, the star-entangling vines were excited. Countless vines pierced into the ground and forcibly absorbed the blood essence and vitality of the 6 demon lords. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of experts from the insane sect rushed into the sky and supported Yi Qinghan with the Great Wasteland's divine power. They firmly restrained the 6 demon lords. They could only struggle madly but could not break free from the suppression of the Great Wasteland's tablet. Yi Qinghan's divine power of the Great Wasteland's divine power was being depleted rapidly. His skin, which was originally glowing, became dull and lifeless. His divine power and the power of the world were being sucked away by the Great Wasteland's tablet. Divine light shot out in all directions and the world rumbled continuously. The version of QQ reading that you can ask questions is the internal version. It is available in the group but not anywhere else. If you have any questions that you want to ask me in public, you can join the group and update the internal version. Any questions, including personal ones, but I will not answer any personal questions. Hee. Chapter 15-14. The 6 demon sovereigns were suppressed by the Great Desolate Tablet, and half of their vitality was devoured by the star-twining vine. They could no longer struggle and were killed. Let's go back and stop Hierarch Wu Ji. Yi Qinghan's main body didn't even look at the 6 demon sovereigns. He picked up the sky-sinking wood and kicked the 6 demon sovereigns' bodies to the star-twining vine before leading the group deeper in. The star-twining vine swept up the 6 demon sovereigns' bodies and retracted its vines as it quickly followed. Wah wah wah. The star-twining vine was huge and its vines rapidly retracted. The mountains and rivers within 1,000 miles seemed to be flowing. The scene was extremely terrifying. Far in the depths of the danger zone, Yi Qinghan's clone was fighting against Hierarch Wu Ji alone. He chased after an untraversable danger zone. The poisonous miasma was strong enough to penetrate the world's defenses and finally stopped Hierarch Wu Ji. Yi Qinghan looked down at Hierarch Wu Ji with the 7-foot craze hammer in his hand. He sneered and said disdainfully, "Continue to escape. If you escape, I won't chase after you." Hierarch Wu Ji's expression turned ugly. He didn't know that this was the Desolate Master's clone and thought that it was a foreign race expert. He said earnestly, "Dao friend from the giant blood race, you and I have no enmity. There's no need to kill me. Our battle strength is similar and once we fight, we can both die on the spot. There's no need for that, right?" Yi Qinghan looked at the poisonous miasma around him. There weren't even any birds or beasts. He knew that this place was dangerous, but his desire to kill Hierarch Wu Ji was even more determined. As long as he killed Hierarch Wu Ji, the 7 realms would only have 4 sector lords and 4 Great Perfection Realm artifacts. On his side, he had 6 Great Perfection Realm artifacts and 2 Great Perfection Realm artifacts that were comparable to sector lords. The few Great Perfection Realm artifacts of the foreign races and Fairy Ing Shui of the spiritual race had powerful mental energy. If they worked together with the stone sword, it wouldn't be a problem for them to deal with a sector lord. They would only have a chance of victory if Hierarch Wu Ji died. There's indeed no need, but you must die. Yi Qinghan replied firmly. You're courting death. Since you want to participate in this matter, I'll fulfill your wish. The foreign races will be exterminated because of you. Hierarch Wu Ji bluffed and shouted. Let's give it a try. Yi Qinghan gripped his saber with both hands, as if he was using Zhong Kuang as a stone sword. He gathered his momentum and struck out with his first strike. Boom! The moment the sword aura was unleashed, a huge wave was set off. It was the power of the world, and it was extremely sharp and domineering. Bang! The collision with the divine sword swept up the poisonous miasma, forming vortexes. Countless white bones could be seen in the depths of the poisonous miasma, as if it was hell. Whoosh! A black shadow flashed through the poisonous miasma. Yi Qinghan could even clearly see its fangs and devilish face. The impact caused Yi Qinghan to involuntarily take a step back. The black shadow that had vanished charged out of the poisonous miasma. The fur on its claws was thick and long, and its nails were black. It clawed at revered god Wuji's back, sending cold beams in all directions as poisonous gas surged towards the distant Yi Qinghan. Revered god Wuji was caught off guard and did not notice that there was a creature behind him. His defenses were penetrated by the terrifying creature's claws, and the claws pierced into his waist. Blood and flesh splattered as the poisonous gas rapidly spread to his limbs and bones. Revered god Wuji roared angrily as he turned his head and slashed with his sword, directly severing the arm of the hairy savage. Burning with rage, he raised his leg and kicked the savage. His huge hand transformed into a huge palm that could shatter the heavens, sending the savage flying. However, he did not shatter the savage's body. The savage cried out in pain as he fell backward, landing heavily on the white bones. Large pieces of white bones shattered as he crawled up and disappeared into the poisonous miasma. It was so fast that it was a mess. Yi Qinghan was a little stunned. The creature looked like a savage, but it was extremely ugly. It was like an evil spirit that was extremely ferocious. It had a malevolent face and did not look like a human at all. However, its body size was no different from a human's. Especially that claw. It looked like a human's cultivation technique. Revered god Wuji was in extreme pain as he pulled out the arm that had pierced into his body. However, his body was dim and his body was distorted. His face was hideous as though the poisonous gas had attacked his heart. He felt weak all over, and the sword in his hand and the arm fell to the ground. Revered god Wuji cried out in pain as he knelt on the ground. He viciously tore at the wound on his back, which quickly spread to his entire body. Save me, kill me. Revered god Wuji cried out in pain as his hands viciously clawed at his body. His neck and face were covered in snow. Yi Qinghan had never seen such a poisonous gas before. His expression changed slightly and he did not go near revered god Wuji. He was a true sector lord. The moment the poisonous gas entered his body, it would take effect. Even his soul spirit could not leave his body. It could be seen how tyrannical the poison was. CSISI. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath as he watched revered god Wuji fall into a pool of blood. The blood was completely black and thick. It emitted a foul stench. His lips were purple and his eyes were red. He looked like an evil spirit. His face was hideous and ugly, similar to the black figure from before. That was a human, but he survived the poisonous miasma. To actually survive such a poisonous gas, how terrifying is his willpower? Yi Qinghan was appalled. He asked himself honestly and knew that he could not do such a thing. If he was really poisoned, he would have committed suicide long ago. CSISI. Revered god Wuji knelt on the ground as black blood flowed out. The blood was actually moving as though there were other creatures in it. I beg you, save me. Revered god Wuji was unwilling to accept this. He was a sector lord, yet he had died in the hands of a creature in the poisonous miasma. He did not even see his face. How tragic was this? Yi Qinghan sneered as he slowly raised Zhongquang. He looked extremely satisfied as he grinned sinisterly. Wuji, look at who I am. Hua. Yi Qinghan's face contorted as he gradually regained his desolate lord appearance. He was strong and handsome, but at this moment he was less sunny and more sinister and cruel. Hatred had made him so cold. How could he not be happy seeing his enemy die so tragically? Desolate lord. Revered god Wuji roared as he felt even more pain. Both his mind and body were being tortured by the poisonous gas and Yi Qinghan at the same time. Ha. Good will be rewarded, and evil will be repaid. It's not that there's no retribution, it's just that it's not time yet. When you massacred my people, did you ever think that you would die so tragically today? Yi Qinghan laughed maniacally. This poison is so, ugh. Revered god Wu Ji screamed miserably. His face was malevolent and he could no longer endure it. He spat out more and more poisonous blood as though his organs were being poisoned. Wait a little longer. There's no rush. I like to see you in such a miserable state. Don't worry, the other 4 will also die so tragically. I won't let you die alone. Yi Qinghan sneered. You're so vicious. Revered god Wu Ji clutched his neck as though he wanted to dig out the foreign object stuck in his neck. He even wanted to break his own neck. Chapter 1515. Revered god Wu Ji could never have imagined that he would die in the hands of a ghost. His body gradually twisted and turned sinister as he fell into a black blood mist. Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes as he looked at the miasma. With a wave of his hand, he used his world energy to separate the miasma. Inside the miasma were eerie white bones, brambles, and black trees. They were all unborn creatures. As for the wild ghost, he was standing halfway up the mountain. His face was even scarier than revered god Wu Ji's. However, one could clearly see that he was a human. It was only because his heart was attacked by the miasma that he became like this. Yi Qinghan sized up the ghost. His arm was broken, but there wasn't even blood flowing out. His clothes were all rotten. However, his pupils shrank when he saw the belt around his waist. Due to the corrosion of the miasma, he couldn't be sure, but he felt a sense of déjà vu. The wild ghost seemed to be sizing up Yi Qinghan as well. His eyes were cold and cruel. The miasma quickly overlapped and covered the wild ghost. Yi Qinghan waved his hand again to separate the miasma. However, the wild ghost disappeared. Ooh! Even Yi Qinghan's breathing had changed slightly. His appearance had returned to its original state. He was like a giant. He extended his hand and grabbed the world treasure divine sword. Then, he no longer cared about revered hierarch Wu Ji. He turned around and charged towards the direction of the vast wilderness. Swish, swish, swish. Yi Qinghan stepped on the ancient trees on the peak of the mountain and walked forward. He met Yi Qinghan, the people of the Kuang sect, and the cultivators of the foreign races in the desert outside the gathering place of the foreign races. He nodded calmly. Lord Kuei, who was excited as though he had met his ancestor. Young master. Welcome, young master. Lord Kuei, who knelt on one knee and presented the stone sword to the clone. Yi Qinghan's clone silently received the stone sword. Then, he threw revered god Wu Ji's weapon to Gu Qingyu. Now, he had another world treasure. I'm going to Mount Zhongjuan. Yi Qinghan's clone said calmly. The main body nodded. After so long, it was time to go and see Yanao. Bring Huang Peng along. The main body waved his hand and sent Huang Peng out from the Great Desolation Monument. Huang Peng was extremely excited at this moment. Killing 2 sector lords at once, it seemed like revenge wasn't that difficult. Yi Qinghan didn't want to hurt Desolate Peng. Although killing 2 sector lords seemed easy, there were too many factors involved. Firstly, at this moment, there were only 2 world overlords here. The enemies were all scattered. Secondly, the 6 fiendish devil paragons were too afraid of the Desolate Lord. They were frightened by the Desolate Lord's name. Furthermore, he was alone and did not have the courage to face the Desolate Lord alone. Furthermore, there were so many people with pseudo-world artifacts attacking him. There were also 2 great perfection experts with world artifacts. Furthermore, he was entangled by the star-twisting vine and suppressed by the Great Wastelands tablet. Victory was certain. As for revered god Wu Ji, not even Yi Qinghan had expected him to die in the poisonous miasma. The wild ogre's sharp claws were like a world artifact, piercing through his defenses and attacking his organs. The poisonous miasma was tyrannical, instantly sealing off his entire body. Even his soul could not escape. Perhaps it was the will of the heavens that he had died so miserably. However, when the other 4 sector lords returned, it would be different. They had more people and were more courageous. It wouldn't take them much effort to kill the Desolate Lord. They would be able to kill the desolate lord and their clones. Yi Qinghan's clone smiled bitterly and shook his head. He brought desolate Peng with him and distorted space, quickly disappearing. The Lord Loyalty Mountain was majestic and heavy. Its awe-inspiring aura spread out in all directions. The mountains undulated up and down like a huge dragon raising its head. The central mountain was the tallest and the rest of the mountains surrounded it. The foot of the mountain was like a huge basin. In the middle of the basin, there was a mountain that soared into the sky. However, this place couldn't store rainwater. As for the specific reason, it was definitely because Ling Yan had done something to this place. Yan Ao's grave was buried here. This place seemed to be a natural 8 trigrams array. Every mountain and every ancient tree were arranged in a very orderly manner. A grave was located in the center of the basin, close to the foot of the mountain. The tombstone wasn't very tall, only about the height of 2 people. The grave mound was even smaller. If one didn't pay attention, one wouldn't be able to tell that this was a grave. The surroundings of the grave were filled with thorns and weeds. It seemed that no one had visited this place for many years. Half a month later, Yi Qinghan brought desolate Peng to the basin of the Lord Loyalty Mountain. In a flash, they swooped down from the peak of a small mountain and landed in front of the tombstone. The tombstone was already wrapped in thorns and looked very desolate. The tombstone was engraved with the words Yan Ao's grave. There was also a row of small words below. If one looked carefully, it was actually engraved with Yan Ao's lifetime achievements. Countless battles, countless battle results, everything was listed one by one. Other than Ling Yan, not many people could remember Yan Ao's glorious life. Saya Yi Qinghan and Desolate Peng sighed at the same time. They sighed for Yan Ao and Ling Yan. Heroes cherished each other, but they had no choice but to kill each other. Second brother Yan Ao, boss is here to see you. Desolate Peng knelt in front of the tombstone. His hands were pulling out the thorns and weeds one by one. He was very depressed. Yi Qinghan pursed his lips and stared at the tombstone. He waved his hand and wiped away the thorns around. He looked around, but he couldn't find anything that could make him suspicious. Don't worry, move aside. I want to open the grave and examine the corpse. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Desolate Peng was shocked. He turned his head and looked at Yi Qinghan. He quickly said, Boss, it's not good to disturb second brother now, right? No, I want to see his corpse with my own eyes. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He looked down at the tombstone. His world force spread out and erased the formation and runes nearby. He uprooted the tombstone. The tombstone shattered, revealing a bronze coffin. It was unknown how many years it had been sealed. It was isolated by the formation and was not destroyed. What? Yi Qinghan reached out and took out the bronze coffin. He took a deep breath. He was very nervous. He pushed the coffin aside and took a step back. The strange smell dispersed. Desolate Peng's eyes were absent-minded. He looked at the coffin and nervously walked towards it. Yi Qinghan stared at the inside of the coffin. His eyes flashed with divine light. He walked closer step by step. His heart was about to jump out. Impossible. Ling Yan can't even differentiate between a living person and a dead person. Yi Qinghan roared in a low voice. There was a trace of pain and sadness on his face. However, there was also a trace of hope and hope. It was very contradictory. Zeng zeng zeng. Desolate Peng saw what was inside the coffin. He took a few steps back with a shocked expression. Where is second brother's corpse? Desolate Peng muttered. There was only a bloody shirt in the coffin. There was nothing else. Yan Ao's corpse was not inside. Ling Yan wouldn't lie to me. He definitely buried Yan Ao here. But where is Yan Ao? Yi Qinghan gripped the bronze coffin. His 5 fingers pierced through the bronze. His eyes flashed with cold light. Boss, is second brother still alive? His corpse is not here. Does that mean he is still alive? Desolate Peng asked excitedly. He was like a 10-year-old child full of expectation. Yi Qinghan didn't have the slightest bit of joy. Instead, he felt a bit of pain. Desolate Peng was stunned. Looking at Yi Qinghan's expression, he frowned and asked, Boss, if second brother Yan Ao is really not dead, shouldn't you be happy? Yi Qinghan bitterly smiled. He reached out and grabbed the blood-red clothes. From the waist of the blood-red clothes, he took a piece of the waist accessory. It was similar to the one on the wild ghost man. If that wild ghost man was really Yen Ao, then one could imagine how much torture he had suffered for so many years. Chapter 15-16. Yi Qinghan clutched the belt and knelt powerlessly in front of the bronze coffin. Thinking back to Hierarch Wu Ji's painful appearance, he could understand why that wild ghost-like existence was able to survive in the poisonous miasma. He had to endure at least 1,000 times more pain. 10,000 times. Yen Ao's willpower was indescribable. Yi Qinghan naturally knew that he was the most terrifying person in the younger generation. If that wild ghost-like person was really him, then Hierarch Wu Ji's death wouldn't be strange at all. However, Yi Qinghan didn't want that person to be Yen Ao at all. He even hoped that Yen Ao would die rather than suffer such pain. That kind of torture was simply despairing. I'd rather you die than let you suffer such an outcome. Yi Qinghan's eyes were absent-minded as he looked at Mount Loyal Monarch. His heart was filled with sorrow and guilt. Huang Peng didn't understand because he didn't see how miserable Hierarch Wu Ji was. That wild ghost-like person must have suffered even more than Hierarch Wu Ji. After a long time, Yi Qinghan placed Ling Yan's corpse into the coffin and resealed it before placing it in the grave. After rearranging the array, Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and turned to Huang Peng. Go to Great Desolation first and set up spies at the border of Void Ocean. If you discover that the 4 sector lords have returned, immediately inform me. I will return to the foreign race's gathering place and try to fuse with my original body to break through. Yes, boss. Huang Peng was very confused, but he didn't ask much and turned to head towards Great Desolation World. Yi Qinghan powerlessly looked towards the depths of the danger zone. He couldn't enter the poisonous miasma at all. Even Hierarch Wu Ji was poisoned to death. If he went, he would also die. Helpless, he could only slowly walk towards the depths. He didn't know if the person in the depths was Yen Ao. Even if he knew, there was nothing he could do. He had no choice but to give up. How sorrowful would it be when he gave up? The closer he got to the depths, the more Yi Qinghan wanted to go in and investigate. He wanted to know if that person entered the poisonous miasma because he was panicking. There were a few times when he couldn't control his emotions, but in the end his rationality won over his emotions and he gave up. The entire journey was dull as he pulled the divine bird out. Help me analyze if that Swan Padian has any other bad intentions. My mind is in a mess and I can't think of anything. Yi Qinghan Tili looked at the sky and said helplessly. The divine bird spread its wings, of it. But I guess his strength must be limited and his strength. His strength. 2. Of Yi to Yi, of him, of Yi, to Yi to you, to. Yi Qinghan let out a sigh of relief and said with a faint smile, that's true. I think too highly of Swanpadian. I feel that he is an existence that cannot be controlled. Actually, if I think about it carefully, he might be able to control my fate, but he can't control everything about me. Wisdom. I'm not stupid. Moreover, I have an almighty wisdom beside me, the divine bird. When the divine bird heard this, it immediately raised its head and replied proudly, that's right. If this divine bird dares to say that I'm the second smartest, who dares to say that they are the first? Yi Qinghan raised the corner of his mouth. He knew that this fellow wanted to open a dye house just by giving it some face. It wasn't entirely true that the divine bird was smart. It was just more treacherous and didn't do things according to the rules. Since you're so smart, help me analyze if the person in the poisonous miasma is Yen Ao. Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. The divine bird rolled its eyes and said mockingly, I'm a divine bird. I rely on my wisdom, not a fortune teller. If I can determine the identity of the barbarian just by looking at that thing that looks like his waist, then I'm too awesome. Analyze and estimate. I'm not asking you to be 100% sure. Yi Qinghan said in a muffled voice. He's most likely dead. Let's not talk about whether the waist on the barbarian's body is Yen Ao's. Even if it is, he might have taken it off from Yen Ao's body and put it on himself. Of course, It might also be a coincidence that the waist is similar. The divine bird said bluntly. Then where did Yen Ao's body go? Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. The divine bird rolled its eyes and said lazily, you should ask Ling Yen about this. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. Ling Yen was already killed. Could it be that Yen Ao's matter was really going to become a mystery? Time flew by. A man and a bird walked in the western desert. Wherever they passed, all living things would retreat. A cold aura filled the air. The pressure of the giant blood tribe covered 1,000 miles. The giant blood tribe was the king of the foreign races. Their bloodline was the most respected. However, their luck was no longer there and they had declined. Now, with Yi Qinghan's body, they would definitely be reborn. A few days later, Yi Qinghan appeared in the foreign races territory. Fortunately, the war did not affect this place. Other than the barrier, everything was fine. Yi Qinghan brought the divine bird to the city gate. He saw 15 giant blood tribe members and 7 giant blood tribe women. However, they looked too big, like a giant. Their eyes were shining as they stared at Yi Qinghan's doppelganger. Yi Qinghan felt goosebumps all over his body, as if they wanted to forcefully take him. Yi Qinghan's doppelganger took a step back. That kind of naked gaze was too terrifying. Ah, a young master, don't be afraid. These are the most beautiful women of our giant blood tribe. As long as you are willing, they will all be yours. Master Kuei-hu said excitedly. Kakaka, ha. But the one who laughed the loudest was none other than the divine bird. It was completely taking pleasure in Yi Qinghan's misfortune. Thinking about how many beautiful women had chased after him and offered themselves to him, he had rejected them all. Now, a few giant women had taken a fancy to him and wanted to force him. Just thinking about it made him happy. But, laugh your ass. Yi Qinghan slapped the divine bird away with a backhand and scolded angrily. The group of people from the insane sect also blushed. These giants were completely unacceptable to humans. Now, looking at Yi Qinghan's doppelganger's embarrassed face, their stomachs were about to cramp. Fortunately, Emperor Yi was not here. Otherwise, he would definitely have taken the initiative to play matchmaker and make Yi Qinghan suffer a loss. Yi Qinghan silently looked at the 5 giant women and then looked at Kuei-hu's excited face. He really wanted to slap him, but he had good intentions. How could he blame him? Forget it, I don't have the fortune to enjoy it. You can keep it for yourself. Yi Qinghan said in a muffled voice. Young master, you are the purest giant blood tribe royalty. Your bloodline needs to be passed down. Do you think the 5 of them are not good enough for you? Kuei-hu's expression was ugly. According to aesthetics, these 5 giant blood tribe women were the strongest and most talented. In the future, their children would also be the strongest. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. His fingertips were trembling. He was furious. Let's not talk about this anymore. I'm not a blood giant. It's just that the stone sword altered my genes. I'm a human, and my sense of beauty doesn't agree with the nobles. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Chapter 15-17. Yi Qinghan politely rejected the advances of 5 peerless beauties from the giant tribe and helped them rebuild the concealment enchantment. It was even more lifelike than the original enchantment. Yi Qinghan did not hide behind his back. Although their souls were connected, they were actually 2 different people. The doppelganger was still Yi Qinghan, while the original was the Wasteland Lord. The Wasteland Lord was cold and gloomy, even a little cruel. He had too many seeds of hatred, but Yi Qinghan was still the same as before. He was full of contradictions. When he was sick, he was a lunatic who did not care about anything. When he was not sick, he was a handsome man who was occasionally treacherous and occasionally nice. Now Yi Qinghan carried the majesty of the giant blood royal family. Even the other races were respectful to him. Fairy Ingxue, He Tianing, and the others wished that Yi Qinghan could stay and lead them back to the 9 worlds heaven. They wanted to take back the fate of the past and control the 9 worlds heaven. Yi Qinghan could only smile bitterly. Right now, he couldn't even protect himself, not to mention that this group of strange races were technically his enemies. After all, the Bai Zhe Saintess was killed by them together. If the elite guards were to find out, who knows how big of a commotion it would cause. In order to gain the support of the other races, Yi Qinghan and the Wasteland Lord did not say much. Fairy Ying Shui and Master Kuei who arranged accommodations for Kuang Zong and the others. The place where the foreign races gathered suddenly became lively. These foreign races were called foreign races, but they looked no different from humans. The only difference was that the giant blood race was bigger. Or rather, they were giants. As for the spirit clan, their spiritual power surpassed that of mortals. Even Yi Qinghan did not dare to say that his spiritual power was stronger than Fairy Ying Shui's. The women of the spirit clan were definitely peerless beauties. However, there were not many of them. Including Fairy Ying Shui, there were less than 300 of them. There were many men and women, and their inheritance was about to be broken. Now, among the top 10 races, the raccoon race had the most people. There were about 800 of them. The ratio of men to women was 1 to 3. They were facing extinction. The heavenly Qilin race, the raccoon race, the spiritual race, the giant blood race, the desolate sand race, the meow human race, the wolfman race, the monkey race, the psychic race, and a strange god race. The desolate sandman race had the least number of people. The only one left was the one who attacked the desolate lord. No wonder he was so afraid of death. If he died, the Sandman race would really be extinct. The God race was a strange race. They didn't need to cultivate when they were born. When they reached adulthood, they could communicate with heaven and earth and become a paramount god. However, it was extremely difficult to reach the pseudo-world lord level. Currently, there were only a few dozen of them. The giant blood tribe had around 100 people. The ratio of men to women was normal, 1 to 1. However, they reproduced very slowly. If they continued to live here, it would be very difficult for them to continue their legacy. The Wolfman race and the Monkey race were different races. In other words, they were races that shouldn't have been born. They were a race born from the Wolfman race and the humans. In the end, they were abandoned by the humans and became the abandoned children of the gods. They were discriminated against by the humans and other races. In the end, the other races were hunted down and had no choice but to join forces with the other races. There weren't many of them. Their cultivation was also very low. The strongest among them was only a paramount god, and there was only one of them. The rest of the Wolfman race and the Monkey race were mostly high gods. There were very few master gods. However, they weren't weak in the same realm. The psychic race was said to be able to communicate with corpses and all living things. However, they needed the purest soul. The purer the soul, the stronger the communication ability. When they cultivated to the strongest state, they could even communicate with the entire 9 worlds. However, no one knew if this was true or not. The Meow human race was a tribe. They were the embryonic form of the most ancient humans. However, at the final moment of their evolution, they didn't evolve in the direction of the masses and were abandoned by the humans. The celestial scale race was born with horns. The horns could communicate with the profound mysteries of the origin law. However, different celestial scale race members communicated with different profound mysteries of the origin law. The Psyche race was born with strong mental strength. However, their bodies were very weak. When they joined forces with the giant blood race, they were very powerful. One attacked the soul and the other attacked the body. They could also defend. They were almost invincible. Therefore, the relationship between the Psyche race and the giant blood race had always been good. At this moment, Fairy Ying Shui kept looking at Yi Qinghan. She was very excited. Yi Qinghan felt weird being stared at by Fairy Ying Shui. It was as if Fairy Ying Shui was a pervert and she was a delicate girl. Mr. Yi, 5 days later, the Psyche race's goddess festival will be held. I wonder if I can invite you and the insane sect to participate? Fairy Ying Shui looked at the people of the insane sect with anticipation. Finally, she stared at Yi Qinghan. It seemed like she wouldn't give up until she got what she wanted. Yi Qinghan looked at Master Kuei Hu in confusion. He didn't know what the hell this goddess festival was. Master Kuei Hu grinned sinisterly and said, "Young master, this is a good thing. The Psyche race's goddess festival is the Psyche race's supreme festival. It's just like worshipping ancestors. During the worshipping ancestors, we play a little game and pray for the ancestors' blessings. Normally, only the elites of the other races are qualified to be invited. It's not good to refuse. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Yi Qinghan shrugged and nodded. Since Fairy Yingshui has invited me, then I'll accept. After hearing that Yi Qinghan had recovered, Fairy Yingshui left in high spirits to prepare for the goddess festival. The divine bird looked at Master Kuei-hu's sinister smile and reminded him doubtfully, I knew something was wrong when I saw that bitch's smile. She really didn't hide it well. You have to be careful. Yi Qinghan really didn't know anything about the goddess festival. Moreover, it was just a worshipping ceremony. No matter how much trouble it caused, it wouldn't be a big deal. Moreover, the people of the insane sect were very excited, especially the young single men. They were rubbing their hands together and couldn't wait to conquer a woman of the Psyche race. Boss, the women of the Psyche race are really good. All of them are curvy and charming. They're more attractive than human women. Mu Zhuang grinned. Yes, I agree with Uncle Mu Zhuang. I thought that he had become stupid after practicing the sword for so many years. It turns out that he also knows how to love his wife and appreciate beauty. Sky Sword Physique mocked. Is that true? You also think that the women of the Psyche race are prettier than us humans? Zixian glared at Mu Zhuang and Sky Sword Physique with a gloomy face. His eyes turned purple as he mocked them. What a snob. Dong Qin also snorted coldly. The two peerless beauties had been cultivating in the Great Wasteland Monument for so long that everyone seemed to have forgotten about them. Mu Zhuang shrank back. Seeing that the two beauties were angry, he immediately laughed and shook his head. That's not right. What I meant was that other than the few of you, the women of the Psyche race are the most beautiful and charming. However, you are boss's women. We don't dare to covet you. Yi Qinghan was unjustly implicated. When he saw the two women's gazes, he hurriedly took a few steps back. When he thought about how they, Emperor Yi and Long Zai, had tormented him for an entire night, he almost collapsed. Medusa smiled faintly. Her beauty could topple countries, but there was a faint sadness in her smile. This made Yi Qinghan somewhat annoyed. Chapter 1518. 5 days passed quickly. The spirit race women were focused on setting up the ceremony, and some of the insane sect's bachelors were helping out. The atmosphere in the alien gathering place became more relaxed and cheerful. The haze of the previous battle was swept away. The main body went into seclusion, leaving only Yi Qinghan to guard the area. In the past 5 days, Master Kuei, who had been worried sick about Yi Qinghan marrying a giant blood tribe woman and passing on his powerful bloodline. He had been treating people to meals every day and had the giant blood tribe women accompany him. Yi Qinghan felt a headache coming on. Young master, our giant blood tribe women are strong. They are not as pretentious as human women. They are the best choice for a soul mate. Young master, please reconsider. If you choose a giant blood tribe woman, you will understand the benefits of having a giant blood tribe woman. Young master, Master Kuei, who nagged all day, and Yi Qinghan frowned. He had no choice but to run away. From then on, Yi Qinghan refused to accept any more invitations from Master Kuei-hu. On the 5th day, the gathering place of the foreign races was bustling with noise. All the experts of the foreign races had come. Even the ordinary foreign races were standing outside to watch the show. The women of the spirit race were gorgeously dressed, as though they were trying to attract the experts. Mu Zhuang was the most excited. He seemed to have set his eyes on a spirit race woman. She was the top-grade girl by Fairy Yingshui's side. She had a perfect body, and she had everything she wanted. Most importantly, she had the aura of a goddess. She was noble and holy, and her skin was as smooth as jade. Mu Zhuang, who was a sword maniac, ran over to Yi Qinghan and said flatteringly, "Hee, boss, help me out later. I've been single for 10,000 years." Yi Qinghan smiled and looked in the direction of Mu Zhuang's lecherous eyes. He found that the girl was indeed top grade. Her cultivation was not bad, but she was not a paramount god. Judging from her appearance and temperament, She was very young and had great potential. Did you find out anything? What kind of event is the festival of sacrifice to the goddess? Yi Qinghan asked calmly. Mu Zhuang grinned and said, it's an event to worship the ancestors and pray for blessings. It's also a chance for the women of the spirit tribe to choose a spouse. Boss, the women of the spirit tribe look pretty good. Do you want to take in a concubine? Bang. Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand and pointed a finger at Mu Zue's head. My affairs are already very troublesome, how can I have the time to talk about love? Just work harder today and get all the women of the spirit tribe. Yi Qinghan calmly replied. At this moment, Zixin, Dongqin, and Medusa glared at him fiercely. Mu Zhuang shrank his head and ran away immediately. At this moment, Fairy Yingxue stood on the highest stage and said with a smile, the festival of sacrifice to the goddess of the spirit tribe is to worship the ancestors and pray for blessings. It's also to choose a suitable partner for the women of the spirit tribe. Any expert who is invited by the spirit tribe is a friend of our tribe, so you must abide by our rules. The rules are very simple. As long as a woman of our tribe fancies a young talent, she will challenge the elite. If the young talent loses, he must win the woman of our tribe. If he wins, he has the right to choose whether he wants to marry her or not. Of course, my friends, you can also take the initiative to challenge him. If you win, the woman of our tribe will marry you. If you lose, it depends on whether the woman of our tribe is willing or not. Fairy Yingxue looked at the people of the eccentric sect and said, obviously, the other foreign tribes knew the rules of the spirit tribe. Only the eccentric sect did not know. The people of the eccentric sect and the experts of the chaos realm were invited, but some of them looked at each other. They had wives and children, and their children were with them. If they were challenged at this time and lost, it would not be fun. My friends, the details of the challenge will be discussed by the challengers themselves. We won't say much. Now, let's officially start the festival of sacrifice to the ancestors. Dong dong dong. The experts of the foreign tribes beat the drums. They were the son-in-law of the spirit tribe, the best of the best. Otherwise, the women of the spirit tribe would not have taken a fancy to them. The women of the spirit tribe sang and danced, showing off their magical powers, hoping to attract the attention of the strongest man in the world. When the time came for the challenge, the man would not be able to refuse. Yi Qinghan sat among the people of the eccentric sect, admiring the dance with a smile on his face. Most of his attention was on the stone statue of the goddess of the spirit tribe. This goddess was rumored to be the ancestor of the spirit tribe. Her spiritual power was enough to communicate with the Nine Worlds and borrow the power of the Nine Worlds to fight against the Realm Lord. No one could resist her. The statue was lifelike and looked even more beautiful than Fairy Yingxue. For a stone statue to be so beautiful, it was absolutely perfect. Yi Qinghan was also a master sculptor, but in the face of such a stone statue, he admitted that he was not confident that he could carve a more perfect statue than this one. Excited by the prospect, the tiny figure in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness began to operate rapidly. It held a dagger in its hand and carved on a star in its world. However, it discovered that every time it carved the same blade, it consumed thousands of times more spiritual energy than usual. He had just carved a prototype of the stone statue in front of him, but the spiritual power of a realm lord was completely consumed. The key was that there was still a big gap between what he carved and the statue of the goddess in front of him. The spiritual power of the person who carved this statue has reached a perfect state. His soul should have reached the immortal level. So be it if the world is immortal. But why did it disappear? Yi Qinghan was secretly puzzled. It was hard to guess how the human race had suddenly emerged and how they had destroyed the 10 great foreign tribes. Just the emperor of the giant blood tribe and the goddess of the spirit tribe alone could have destroyed the human race, right? Is fate really that important? Yi Qinghan murmured. His face was pale and his spiritual power had dried up. Now, it was quickly recovering, but it was obvious that it had grown much stronger. Copying the statue of the goddess could increase one's spiritual power. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He was just excited to see the goddess and wanted to copy the statue of the goddess in front of him. Now, he was pleasantly surprised. Fairy Yingshue's spiritual power was extremely strong. She immediately felt Yi Qinghan's soul fluctuations. She found that his face was pale, as if he had exhausted his spiritual power. She couldn't help but be surprised. The ancestral worship ceremony continued. Fairy Yingxue stopped paying attention to Yi Qinghan and led the 100 most beautiful women of the spirit tribe to kneel before the statue of the goddess. They prayed and sought the blessings of the goddess. The statue of the goddess surged with divine light. Golden light shot out in all directions. It was incomparably holy. Under the sunlight, it was hard to look straight at. Yi Qinghan sat up straight and quietly watched. The surrounding foreign race experts all held their breaths and quietly watched. They didn't dare to disturb. Disturbing the ancestral worship ceremony was the same as challenging the spirit tribe. Mu Zhuang's eyes were filled with the young girl beside Fairy Yingxue. He seemed to have fallen in love with her. At this time, the young girl actually walked towards the statue of the goddess. She cut her slender jade-like hand and dripped her essence blood into the bowl at the statue's feet. Ancestor, please bless my spirit tribe. Ancestor, please bless my spirit tribe with eternal prosperity. The young girl murmured. She was exhausted and slowly collapsed at the statue's feet. Mu Zhuang was shocked. He wanted to rush over but was forcefully suppressed by Yi Qinghan's will. Chapter 1519. Yi Qinghan suppressed Mu Zhuang and transmitted his voice. Don't mess around. This is the ancestral worship ceremony of our race. You can't mess around here. All the aliens looked on calmly. They didn't try to stop her, and their emotions didn't fluctuate much. There was no pity in their eyes. Yi Qinghan estimated that the girl wouldn't be in any danger. After a while, the statue of the goddess suddenly emitted a divine light that enveloped the entire alien race. Even the Guangzong and the others benefited from it. They felt warm all over and their souls felt empty. Fairy Yingxue smiled. Seeing the statue's reaction, she knew that the ancestral worship ceremony had succeeded. Now, all that was left was to choose a mate. Holding the beautiful girl in her arms, she put her hands on her forehead, and the girl quickly recovered. Her face glowed with radiance as she reached the paramount god level. That was one of the benefits of offering sacrifices to the ancestors to awaken the statues. One would receive the blessings of the goddess, and one's psychic power would skyrocket. Of course, not just anyone could do it. Only a pure and kind-hearted girl from the spirit folk could do it, and this girl was the perfect candidate. The girl stood up with a smile on her face. That glory wasn't something that just anyone could get. Fairy Yingxue let go of the girl, looked at the others, and said expectantly, "Now, it's time for the spirit race to choose a mate. No one can refuse. Otherwise, you'll be disrespectful to the goddess and look down on our entire race." Mu Zhuang was the most excited. He stared at the girl, and the girl noticed. She glared at him and raised her head proudly. It seemed that she wasn't going to challenge him. The Guangzong and the divine bird laughed. Mu Zhuang's face turned red, and he had to lower his head and pretend that nothing happened. Yi Qinghan smiled but didn't say anything. He waited quietly. What happened today had nothing to do with him. After all, he had the soul of a sector lord. His spiritual power wasn't weak. Even if Fairy Yingxue came, she couldn't win against him. Zixian, Dongqin, and Medusa sat beside Yi Qinghan and just watched silently. Occasionally, they would instigate some of the younger generation to take the initiative to challenge others. However, since the others did not take the initiative to challenge others, Yi Qinghan stopped them from doing so. Sure enough, Fairy Yingxue said with a smile, "Today is the festival of sacrifice to the goddess. Naturally, we have to choose the heroes in our hearts first. Let's invite our girls to come out. Starting from the most beautiful girl, we will challenge them one by one. You must choose the hero in your heart. Once you succeed, you must not regret. Otherwise, you will be expelled from the spirit race." A woman walked out from the spirit tribe. It wasn't that girl, but another mature woman. She looked to be about 23 or 24 years old. Her face was flawless, and her development was perfect. Her twin peaks stood proudly, and even an adult's big hand would be hard to grasp. She looked very weak, but from her eyes, one could see that she was very confident. Her spiritual power must be first class. Such a beauty was rare in the world. Coupled with the rare noble temperament of the spirit tribe, she was better than Zixian and the others. She was indeed the number one beauty of the spirit tribe. The woman walked out calmly with a smile on her face. Her white teeth were shining. She slightly cupped her fists and bowed. I am Zhang Yingyue. After that, Zhang Yingyue scanned the crowd, looking for the man she liked. However, her eyes were focused on the group of people from the insane sect. In terms of beauty, humans and the spirit tribe were the most similar. In addition, humans had unlimited potential. She naturally wanted to find the strongest man to be her man. The people of the insane sect were infatuated. This was the number one beauty. It was an honor to be recognized, and it showed that they were outstanding. In the end, Zhang Yingyue's gaze locked onto Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, and Li Feng. Her eyesight was extremely sharp. These three were definitely outstanding figures among the elites. They exuded the aura of kings. Even if the three of them didn't reveal any affection in their eyes, she would still choose her man among the three. The three of them noticed Zhang Yingyue's gaze and released their auras. The experts of the insane sect would naturally compete and even fight. They believed that they were the number one expert besides Yi Qinghan. However, there was no clear winner. The number one beauty of the spirit tribe had to choose. As long as she was chosen, she would naturally be able to suppress the other. The three experts stood up. Their auras erupted. They held divine weapons in their hands and their auras were like rainbows. The people of the insane sect laughed. Yi Qinghan could not help but laugh. These three clearly did not want to show off to the woman. They wanted to prove that they were stronger than the other two. Let's bet on who she will choose. I will be the banker. Whoever wins will get a pseudo-world weapon. Yi Qinghan laughed. I bet on Big Brother Jing'an. I bet on Big Brother Gu. Li Feng is not bad either. He is quite handsome and cool. Everyone was excited. They excitedly chose who they thought was the strongest. They also hoped that Zhang Yingyue would approve of their choices. Zhang Yingyue was curious. She thought to herself, the people of the insane sect should know the insane sect the best. I must choose the strongest. As for their sect leader, I can't beat him at all. Moreover, the clan leader seems to like him. I can only choose the second best. One of the three must be the strongest. Seeing the people of the insane sect talking, it seemed that they did not know who was the strongest. She looked at Yi Qinghan and smiled shyly. She asked, since Mr. Yi has chosen to be the banker, why don't you make a bet yourself? Who do you think I will choose? Yi Qinghan immediately stopped smiling. He smiled and said, that depends on who you want to choose the most. The three of them are the strongest kings in the same realm. There is not much difference between them. I can't give you an opinion. Zhang Yingyue listened and carefully looked at the three. Gu Qingyu was incomparably cold and emotionless. However, he gave people a sense of security. Jiang Jingtian was handsome and tall. He held a long spear in his hand. He was the best choice for a woman. Li Feng, on the other hand, had a handsome face. His eyes were filled with a fierce and domineering luster. He gave people a feeling that he was irresistible. If she were to choose a partner, it seemed that Jiang Jingtian was the best choice. Zhang Yingyue stretched out her slender hand and pointed at Jiang Jingtian. She said, please advise me. Jiang Jingtian suddenly grinned. He took a step forward, turned his head to Gu Qingyu and Li Feng, and made a very exaggerated gesture. He grinned and made a funny face. I won. I am stronger than you. My face is more handsome than yours. Don't provoke me when you see me in the future. Humph. Gu Qingyu and Li Feng snorted coldly. Their eyes seemed to say that Zhang Yingyue did not know how to appreciate people. The people of the insane sect laughed. The three masters were fighting among themselves, but it did not affect their relationship. Jiang Jingtian's face was full of smiles. He turned around and stepped onto the high platform. He said with a gratified face, seeing that you have such good taste, I will let you have 3 moves. Zhang Yingyue proudly took a step forward and said, "The winner and loser is still unknown. We have not discussed the details of the battle. Now, I have decided that you will block my attacks within a radius of 10 meters with yourself as the center. If you retreat beyond 10 meters, you lose." What? With a thought, Zhang Yingyue drew a circle around Jiang Jingtian. The radius was only 5 meters. Gu Qingyu and Li Feng immediately mocked. "Don't lose. It's embarrassing." Chapter 1520. Don't lose, it's embarrassing. Gu Qingyu and Li Feng were very unhappy to be suppressed by Jiang Jingtian like this. Seeing Zhang Yingyue's request, they immediately sneered at Jiang Jingtian's misfortune. Whoosh! A light curtain rushed into the air, about 10 meters in diameter, greatly restricting Jiang Jingtian's performance. However, the spirit tribe woman's defense was indeed weak, only her spiritual power was strong. This was considered fair. Jiang Jingtian shrugged, stepped back half a step, and said lightly, "It's okay, she's just a woman. If you can beat me, I'll be at your disposal." Arrogant and confident, who was Jiang Jingtian? He was the strongest of the Imperial Beast clan, a legendary figure. "Don't hurt the beauty," Yi Qinghan calmly reminded. "Don't worry, I can control it freely. Let her admit defeat." Jiang Jingtian's black hair and robe fluttered at the same time, clean and neat, incomparably handsome. "Then let's start. Fellow Taoist Jiang, if you want to marry the beauty and make Yingyue listen to you or reject her, then you have to beat her. If you lose, you have to listen to her. It's fair and just, no regrets." Fairy Yingxue said seriously. "There's such a rule?" Yi Qinghan frowned. If Jiang Jingtian lost, wouldn't he become a son-in-law who had to listen to Zhang Yingyue and become a member of the spirit tribe? "Sect Master Yi, you don't believe fellow Taoist Jiang can win?" Fairy Yingxue deliberately asked. Yi Qinghan repeatedly shook his head and replied, "It's not that I don't believe in him, but if the other members of the arrogant sect lose, won't it be divided?" Fairy Yingxue stepped on her white dress, fluttering like a fairy, and came to the front of the stage with a smile. "If he loses, he'll naturally be a member of the spirit tribe. But don't worry, if the arrogant sect is in trouble, we'll do our best and won't stay until the end." Master Kuehu ran over and explained to Yi Qinghan, "Young master, this is the rule. The spirit tribe has always been majority female. If they marry outside, the tribe would have been extinct long ago." Yi Qinghan thoughtfully nodded and no longer interfered. Achunat the handsome Jiang Jingtian made his move. He directly tossed out the world-piercing spear. His world force revolved around it as he controlled the spear from a distance. With a flip of his hand, he could summon clouds and rain with another. It was incomparably easy. Even if he didn't leave this circle, he could still be handsome. The long spear pierced through space, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Zhang Yingyue. Boom! However, when it was less than 5 meters away from Zhang Yingyue, the spear seemed to have struck an invisible barrier. It could not move forward even half a step. It trembled violently, and the sky shook with it. Zhang Yingyue didn't seem to move at all, but her mental power surged, forming a void enchantment in front of her. Her big round eyes condensed into 2 lines, staring straight at the world-piercing spear, firmly controlling it in front of her. "Umph!" Jiang Jingtian snorted coldly and clenched his fist. Blue veins bulged all over his body as he pushed the world-piercing spear half a step forward. Buzzed that the world-piercing spear was trembling violently, but it was difficult for it to even take a single step forward. Zhang Yingyue's beautiful lips curled into a sly smile. With a turn of her body, she mobilized her mental power to restrain the trajectory of the world-piercing spear, guiding it behind her. Boom! The world-piercing spear was not resisted by the enchantment. It quickly brushed past Zhang Yingyue's forehead, and a strand of her black hair was cut off. The world-piercing spear pierced through space with that strand of black hair, breaking into the mountain behind her. The mountain rocks were shattered, but the goddess statue immediately released a divine radiance, binding the world-piercing spear within the mountain. Jiang Jingtian was stunned. He reached out his hand to retrieve the world-piercing spear, but no matter how much strength he exerted, The world-piercing spear could only buzz and couldn't return to his hand. In 3 seconds, he lost his weapon. Haha. Li Feng couldn't hold it in and laughed wildly. You can't be cool for more than 3 seconds. Brother Jiang, don't lose too shamefully. Gu Qingyu looked serious and cold, but he was actually mocking Jiang Jingtian, taking pleasure in his misfortune. Jiang Jingtian's handsome face revealed a trace of awkwardness. He, who had never lost before, had kicked an iron wall this time. However, how could he admit defeat? He immediately replied proudly, "But I was still cool before. It's still unknown who will win or lose. The two of you shouldn't be jealous and slander me." Everyone from the insane sect booed loudly, but they didn't seem to be on bad terms at all. Instead, there was a kind of brotherhood between them, which surprised the other races. They didn't expect that the humans they had always hated could be so likable and that their relationship could be so sincere. Zhang Yingyue's black hair fell down, and a smile appeared on her devilish face. She said gently, "As long as you admit defeat, I can give you some face in public and listen to you. Otherwise..." Jiang Jingtian snorted and clenched his fist. His aura shot up to the sky, and his battle robe was cold. His aura was fierce, and he retorted domineeringly, "My woman must listen to me, whether it's at home or outside. Little girl, I'll show you what a man is like. Without weapons and without stepping out of the circle, I can win against you with a wave of my hand." Boom! The Qilin arm exploded, and the clothes on his upper body were shattered. He stomped his foot, and the entire platform trembled. This was the ancestral land of the spiritual tribe, and it could withstand the full attack of a peak expert at the perfect realm. A Qilin shadow appeared behind Jiang Jingtian, and it was extremely domineering. It was like a divine beast overlooking all living beings. His aura was like 10,000 horses galloping, and it roared continuously. Zhang Yingyue's eyes were wide open. This kind of man was the best choice for a woman from the spiritual tribe. Domineering with a strong physical body. One was at the peak of the spiritual tribe, and the other was at the peak of the physical body. His abdominal muscles, chest muscles, and veins were bulging. He was so handsome. Qilin ascends to the sky, and all living beings submit. Jiang Jingtian formed a seal with his palms, mobilizing his aura and the power of the world to support the Qilin shadow. With a roar, heaven and earth shook. The Qilin flew over Jiang Jingtian's head, waving its sharp claws and opening its mouth. Its fangs pierced through the void, and it pounced toward Zhang Yingyue. Zhang Yingyue's face turned pale, but she wasn't afraid to give up resisting. Instead, she was determined to make Jiang Jingtian the son-in-law of the spiritual tribe, and make him the guardian of the spiritual tribe. Buzz. An illusory spiritual barrier in the center, blocking the attack of the Qilin shadow. Zing zing zing. Zhang Yingyue's face was pale. She took several steps back, but her spiritual power rose sharply, connecting with all things in the world, forming an impassable spiritual wall. Fairy Yingshue's expression was normal, and she wasn't too nervous. That was because she trusted Zhang Yingyue very much. Zhang Yingyue was one of the characters who connected with the spiritual tribe's primogenitor statue during the last ancestral worship. But that year, she didn't choose a husband. Now, her strength wasn't much weaker than her. With such a great advantage, defeating Jiang Jingtian wasn't a problem. Yi Qinghan's eyes focused. He didn't feel that Jiang Jingtian had the upper hand. Instead, he stared at Zhang Yingyue's palms and forehead. A crescent moon appeared on both palms, and it formed a triangle with the crescent moon on her forehead. It gathered the will of the world as if preparing a big move. Chapter 1521. Zhang Yingyue's palms and forehead had a crescent moon on them. It was almost transparent, forming a triangle that connected heaven and earth. Her spiritual power surged, forming a void enchantment that was slowly twisting and turning into a sharp blade that pressed down on the Qilin's shadow. It changed from a defensive stance to an offensive one. Yi Qinghan suddenly sat up straight and stared at Zhang Yingyue. He suddenly had a bad premonition that Jiang Jingtian was going to lose. Gu Qingyu and the others were just teasing him between brothers. They didn't really want him to lose. Now that the situation wasn't good, their smiles disappeared. What the hell is this? How can there be crescent moons on her palms and on her forehead? Mu Zhuang looked at Zhang Yingyue's holy face in shock. He suddenly had a feeling of fear and trepidation. Yi Qinghan couldn't give an answer. The other races were too ancient and had too many unknown secrets. Zhang Yingyue's palms formed a blade that blocked the Qilin's shadow. However, she didn't take the initiative to attack. She seemed to be gathering energy to defend herself. The confrontation seemed calm, but it was actually full of danger. Her attack was bound to be earth-shattering and earth-shattering. If Jiang Jingtian didn't move, he wouldn't be able to block it. The spirit tribe's spiritual attacks were extremely powerful, but their defenses were far too weak. It was no wonder that they would choose a man with a powerful physical body as their partner. Once this kind of existence joined forces with Jiang Jingtian, Yi Qinghan might not necessarily be able to win against an opponent of the same level. Zhang Yingyue took a deep breath. Her spiritual aura surged. With a long whistle, the 3 crescent moons shot out a white light that carried her terrifying spiritual attack and swept towards Jiang Jingtian's sea of consciousness. The blade of air attacked at the same time, cutting through the shackles of mountains and rivers and shattering Jiang Jingtian's airflow. The Qilin's shadow was shattered. Boom! The blade of air was like a crescent moon, emitting 7-colored light. It was cold and sharp as it slashed towards Jiang Jingtian. Jiang Jingtian was shocked. He didn't expect a weak girl like Zhang Yingyue to have such a sharp attack. Boom! In that instant, Zhang Yingyue's spiritual attack rushed into Jiang Jingtian's sea of consciousness, shaking his soul. His blood flow stagnated and his body involuntarily took a step back. The light in his eyes scattered and he almost fainted, but his extraordinary willpower quickly crushed that spiritual attack. Get out of here! Boom! Zhang Yingyue's aura surged. She gathered her qi into a blade, and hundreds of sword qi blades appeared on 3 sides of Jiang Jingtian, leaving him a way out. Obviously, she wanted to force him to admit defeat and withdraw from the circle. At this time, Fairy Yingshue's face was full of smiles. She was aware of Jiang Jingtian's combat strength. With this foreign aid, the spirit tribe's strength would greatly increase. However, Yi Qinghan could not laugh, because Jiang Jingtian did not have the slightest advantage. The people of the Kuang sect also quieted down. They clenched their iron fists and broke out in cold sweat for Jiang Jingtian. Jiang Jingtian stared at the strongest sword qi blade in front of him. He stomped his foot and roared. His aura rushed into the Milky Way, shattering the hundreds of sword qi blades around him. His palms were filled with the power of the world as he pressed against Zhang Yingyue's strongest sword qi blade. He actually wanted to use his body to block her attack. Zhang Yingyue's expression remained the same. She continued to mobilize her qi blades to rush at Jiang Jingtian. She was determined to knock him out of the battle. Boom! Jiang Jingtian's bronze-colored muscles bulged. His arms became solid. He clapped his palms together and controlled the strongest qi blade. Bam bam bam. Under the impact, Jiang Jingtian took 3 steps back. He was only 1 step away from the battle. 1 more step and he would be out of the battle. Drip. Jiang Jingtian's forehead was sweating like rain. His heart was heaving up and down, and his voice was like thunder. He gritted his teeth and resisted Zhang Yingyue's strongest attack with his physical strength alone. Yi Qinghan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He thought to himself, Jingtian still did not see it clearly. The spirit tribe has 0 defense. If you want to defeat her, you can only attack her body. At this time, she can use all the power of heaven and earth to transform it into spiritual power. I can't outlast her. Buzz! Zhang Yingyue's big eyes flashed with a sly light. She grinned and separated her palms. The crescent moon on her forehead suddenly became round and shot out a ray of light. It was as thick as an arm. Everything in the world seemed to be mobilized. Moonlight shines on the earth, domain appear. Whoosh! The entire sacrificial altar was bathed in moonlight and became her domain. Countless qi blades were like knives, cutting towards Jiang Jingtian's body. At this time, Jiang Jingtian was forced into a dead end. His big hand exerted force, and the Qilin god power burst out, shattering the air blade in his hand. He grabbed the void, and a virtual world-piercing god spear appeared, shattering the incoming air blade. Hummed at the full moon on Zhang Yingyue's forehead suddenly left her body and appeared in front of her. Rainbow-piercing moon. Zhang Yingyue used her spiritual power to create a spear. It rushed out of the full moon, and its aura was 10 times stronger. The full moon collapsed, and all the energy inside gathered on the spear. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The void was shattered. The spear was like a rainbow, colliding with Jiang Jingtian's spear. His virtual world-piercing divine spear could not block it and was shattered by her virtual spear. Boom. Bam bam bam. The spear collided with Jiang Jingtian's energy defense. Even with his strong physical body, he could not block the spear and was forced back 3 steps. Whoosh! Jiang Jingtian retreated, and the spear turned into a stream of light that appeared in Zhang Yingyue's hand. It transformed into energy and was absorbed back into her body. After Zhang Yingyue won, she looked at Jiang Jingtian's stunned face and revealed a clean and pure smile. She raised 2 slender fingers to show that she had won. You lost. You have to listen to me in the future. Zhang Yingyue said excitedly. Jiang Jingtian was stunned. In his opinion, apart from that freak Yi Qinghan, who could beat him in the same realm, even if he was restricted to a certain range, Zhang Yingyue did not have any defensive power. They were not on the same level. This is not fair. You took away my world-piercing divine spear. Jiang Jingtian said helplessly. Taoist Jiang, this has nothing to do with us. As long as someone attacks the goddess statue with a divine weapon, it will be taken away by the goddess. Yingyue is just using a trick. This is wisdom and strength. Fairy Yingxue laughed. How could she not laugh after getting such a big advantage? Jiang Jingtian looked at Yi Qinghan with a speechless face, not knowing what to do. Yi Qinghan also smiled bitterly. He wanted to give some benefits to the bachelors of the Kuang sect, but in the end he lost his brothers and broke his weapon. It could be said that he went for wool and came home shorn. I can't help it. Who asked you to be so disappointing? Yi Qinghan replied helplessly. Haha, but you are still handsome. Gu Qingyu suddenly laughed. Li Feng also had a gloating look on his face, as if he was happier than if he had won. The people of the Kuang sect could not help but laugh at Jiang Jingtian's defeated look. They were happy and envious. Chapter 1522. Jiang Jingtian looked at each other in dismay. This time, he had lost himself. Yi Qinghan turned his head and did not look at Jiang Jingtian's bitter face. As the saying goes, if you agree to bet, you have to accept defeat. He could not go back on his word. Gu Qingyu and the others were gloating and laughing at Jiang Jingtian. Fellow Taoist Jiang, the rules were set from the beginning. As a man who represents the Kuang sect, I hope you won't go back on your word. Fairy Yingxue reminded him with a smile. The implication was obvious. If he went back on his word, who would believe the Kuang sect in the future? Jiang Jingtian wanted to say something but stopped. He did not know what to say. Yi Qinghan directly sold Jiang Jingtian out. He said firmly, Don't worry, the Kuang sect is a man of its word. I will never go back on my word. Jinghan is the son-in-law of the spirit tribe. You have to listen to your wife. Hey. Jiang Jingtian's eyes widened. He stared at Yi Qinghan, somewhat doubting their brotherhood. Yi Qinghan was also helpless. He could not ruin the honor of the Kuang sect. He quickly comforted him. Brother Jiang, it's not that I don't want to help you. Who asked you to lose? For the honor of the Kuang sect, just admit defeat. Otherwise, you can't let your brothers bear the name of a scoundrel, right? Husband, I gave you a chance. As long as you admitted defeat, I would give you face outside. It's the same now. As long as you admit defeat, this little girl will still give you face. Otherwise, Zhang Yingyue said with a sly smile. Jiang Jingtian saw that he had no chance. He was being suppressed by a woman outside. He immediately said firmly, I lost. I admit defeat. The people of the spirit tribe were overjoyed. They had such a powerful woman. She was not inferior to their leader, Fairy Yingxue. The spirit tribe would definitely be able to return to the Nine Worlds heaven. They would no longer have to stay in this dangerous place. Fairy Inshue looked at the many female cultivators of the spirit tribe excitedly and encouraged them, learn from Inue. You have to do your best and fight for a few good son-in-laws for the spirit tribe. We promise to complete the task. The women of the spirit tribe promised in unison. The little girl beside Inshue was excited. She clenched her small fist and wanted to fight. Fight. Fairy Inshue looked at the little girl beside her and signaled with her eyes. Her cultivation base wasn't very high. She had only just broken through to the paramount god level, so if she wanted to win, she'd have to play dirty. She'd have to restrain their battle prowess, just as Zhang Inue had done to Jiang Jingtian. Yi Qinghan turned his head and looked at the wooden stake. He waved his hand, indicating for Inchun to choose him. He jumped up and down in excitement. No matter who the psyche race chooses, you must win. Isn't it embarrassing to lose to a little girl? Yi Qinghan reminded him in a deep voice. We promised to complete the mission. Everyone from the Kuang sect thumped their chests and promised. Big brother Jingtian, I will avenge you. Yes, big brother Jingtian, don't be sad. We'll help you take revenge. The crowd mocked the speechless Jiang Jingtian who was standing on the stage. Jiang Jingtian's old face turned red. He was infuriated by this group of people who were taking pleasure in his misfortune, but he didn't have the face to refute. Who told him to lose? He could only follow Zhang Inue silently with his head lowered. At this moment, Inchun walked out. Her young face had a trace of determination as she glanced at the experts she liked and could defeat. The cultivation of the Kuang sect wasn't bad. Even the youngest child had the battle prowess of a paramount god. Tong Tong was the youngest, but his strength was unfathomable. Gu Qingyu, Li Feng, and the other fake realm lords were excluded. Otherwise, with her strength, she wouldn't be able to win no matter how shameless she tried. Inchun glanced around and found that they were either too young for her taste or too strong for her to win. Mu Zhuang was the only one she excluded. She couldn't help but look at Inshue with a wronged expression. Mu Zhuang's cultivation base was at the peak of the paramount god level, but he deliberately suppressed his cultivation base to the early stage of the paramount god level, hoping that Inchun would choose him. It seemed that he was determined to win this little girl. Inchun couldn't see through Mu Zhuang's cultivation base, but Inshue could. Mu Zhuang was hiding his cultivation base, so when the battle started he definitely wouldn't release the seal. If he won, it would be equivalent to obtaining a top sword expert. Inchun, that fellow Taoist seems to like you a lot. Fairy Inshue smiled and reminded her. No, his cultivation base is too weak. He can't protect me. Inchun pouted. She was very cute, a perfect little girl. Cough cough. His true cultivation base isn't at the early stage of the paramount god level. He's afraid that you won't dare to choose him, so he deliberately suppressed his cultivation base. Fairy Inshue transmitted her voice to remind her. She didn't want to miss out on this expert. Inchun pursed her lips and muttered to herself, Stinky brat, you dare to lie to me? See if I don't teach you a lesson. Come on up. Look at how arrogant you are. Inchun pointed at Mu Zhuang and said. Mu Zhuang was overjoyed. This was the first time in his life that he was tempted. How could he not be overjoyed? If you lose to me, I'll marry you. And you have to listen to me. If you dare to win, just you wait. Inchun bared her teeth and threatened in a low voice. When Mu Zhuang heard this, he immediately forgot about Yi Qinghan's words. This was a classic example of ignoring humanity for the sake of the opposite sex. Take this. As soon as Inchun finished her sentence, she immediately attacked. Her mental energy poured out, forming a mental attack that blasted towards Mu Zhuang. Ah! Bam! Mu Zhuang fell backwards, falling heavily below the stage. He pretended to be pitiful and said, I lost. Pooh! Yi Qinghan and the others couldn't catch their breath and almost spat out blood. Wasn't this too obvious? For a woman, he would even forsake his brothers. Fuck! This bastard is even more shameless than me. The divine bird scolded. No, brothers, please don't misunderstand. Fairy Yingchuan's mental energy is very strong. I'm no match for her. Mu Zhuang said with a solemn face, as if he was trying to convince everyone that he wasn't lying. Yi Qinghan was speechless. But if Mu Zhuang could get the woman he liked, he could endure this anger. Although these guys didn't have much integrity, they wouldn't betray Guangzong at crucial moments. Hurry up and scram. Treat us to a drink when you enter the bridal chamber. Yi Qinghan was so angry that he laughed. But in order not to be alone, he turned to the Guangzong and said, "Don't be like this bastard." "Boss, don't worry. I definitely won't do that." "That's right. If he betrays boss, he'll be struck by lightning. I hope brother Mu Zhuang can't get it up tonight." "Ha," the Guangzong laughed loudly. Mu Zhuang didn't care. He looked at Ying Chun with a flattering face, winking as if he was asking for credit. Ying Chun snorted and asked in a low voice, "Are you really a peak supreme god?" "Of course I am. My strength is definitely not inferior to your clan leaders. If you put me and her in this dangerous place and fight, I guarantee that I'll be the one to come out alive, not her." Mu Zhuang patted his chest and promised. Smith. Ying Chun stomped on Mu Zhuang's foot and said angrily, "Don't talk about sister clan leader like that. Otherwise, I'll beat you to death." Mu Zhuang begged for mercy. He had long lost his manliness. The Guangzong people looked at him with disgust. They covered their faces and turned away, indicating that they didn't know this bastard. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and shook his head. He no longer had the confidence to continue the competition. He was afraid that in the end, other than Gu Qingyu, the rest would run off to become the son-in-law of the spiritual tribe. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.